go.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, October 21st, 2022. This is a regular meeting of the Commissioners of City of Rehoboth Beach. We are live City Hall Commissioners' Rooms on the second floor. I'm glad everybody's here. I'd like to call this meeting to order at exactly 2:00 p.m. With that, will you please rise and join me in citing the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Tony Sharp.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Shranowski.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett. He told me ahead of time he was unable to make it. Commissioner Tim Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Bunky Markert.
Here.
And Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a quorum, and therefore we're able to formally conduct business today. With that, I would like to also identify the staff present. I've got Brant from the IT department stepping in for Ann, who's not able to be here. We've got the interim city manager and assistant city manager all in one, Evan Miller. City Solicitor Glenn Mandalis, Police Chief Keith Banks, Rehoboth Beach Patrol Captain Jeff Giles, June from the Parking Department, Kevin Williams from Public Works Supervision, Howard Rothstein from Building and Licensing. We've got Alex back there, an associate of Glenn Mandalis, and Lynn Cohen, communication specialist. I think we have members of the public outnumbered today. I'd also like to thank all those that are here in person. As you know, during the different agenda topics, I will call on you to see if you have any comments or feedback, input you'd like. For those that are also watching us live streamed or recorded, we thank you for being here. I'd like to remind everybody, as I usually do, that documents that support our individual agenda topics, when they are ready, are embedded in the agenda and available prior to the meeting so that you can see exactly what we see up here. You go to the cityrehoboth.com website, the right side of the center home page is the lime green box with the portal in there. Click on the portal, look for the calendar and click on the appropriate day and you'll get all the documents under support documents. I'd like to note that the agenda was amended earlier. We specifically removed the original agenda topic, codification of dining patios on public space. We just weren't ready, and we want to defer that to the November 7th workshop. So maybe we'll get out of here a few minutes earlier today. With that, the correspondence that's received in time is embedded in the agenda, and we have comments by Jane and Terry Renzi, 39 Delaware Avenue, that we'll reference during that tree mitigation plan. With that, we have approval of minutes. Now, some of these minutes are older and do not have Bunky Markert in there. So Bunky, we're going to have you not vote on some of these. And so I'd like a motion, if there's no corrections to be made. Let's motion specifically. Can we do this and have him vote or what? Or should he abstain? Should abstain. Okay, so then let's go with the motion to approve the executive session held on August 8th, 2022, as well as include in that a motion of approval of regular meeting held on September 17th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shranowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to approve two sets of minutes, executive sessions held on August 8th, 2022, and the regular meeting held on September 17th, 2021. Everybody's voting except for Bunky. How do you vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll indicate that of those here, but for Bunky, the Vote was unanimously approved, and Bunky abstained. With that, I would like a motion for the remainder set of minutes for executive sessions held on September 23, 2022, executive session held on September 28, 2022, special meeting held on September 23, 2022, and that's it. There, I didn't receive the September 28 minutes yet, so a
So
motion.
moved.
So, Tony,
Second.
here's how we keep things moving and fluid. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sharnowski and a second by Commissioner Sharp to approve the following sets of minutes. Executive session held on September 23, 2022. Executive session held on September 28, 2022. A special meeting held on September 23, 2022. Are there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we'll let the record show that the vote was unanimous to approve those three sets of minutes. With that, I'd like to go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to note that there is a budget report through September included in the agenda. We have two street aid expenditures this month. The first is for Delaware Ave Power in the amount of $9,364.34, and the second for Apple Electric in the amount of $993 for a total of $10,357.34.
Mayor, I move we approve the street aid expenditures in the amount of $10,357.34.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Sharnowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to approve the street aid expenditures, two expenditures that sum as $10,357.34. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mayor. Once we vote on this, Evan still has a report to give.
Yes, yes. Here's the second to remind me. Would anybody else? Is that unanimous? Okay, very good. With that, all those in favor of the approving the street aid expenditures as noted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None, and the record will show that the street aid expenditures were approved unanimously. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. An update on the dune crossing. So happy to report that the staff has repaired all of the dune crossings that were damaged by the high surf and winds brought in a few weeks ago by the remnants of Hurricane Ian. All dune crossings have now been reopened. DENREC has been assisting us with providing sand as needed and regrading the access points as well. When he was in town earlier this week, Senator Tom Carper had toured the beach with the mayor and city staff and got a firsthand look at the erosion caused by the storm. And again, we anticipate that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and DENREC will undertake a beach nourishment program in Rehoboth Beach this winter or spring, so more information to come on that in the future. Still celebrating the Beach Patrol's centennial anniversary. Speaking of Senator Tom Carper, he presented his congressional record statement recognizing the Rehoboth Beach Patrol's 100th anniversary in a ceremony on the boardwalk this past Monday. Several current and former Beach Patrol staff were on hand for the ceremony. And this weekend, the police department is celebrating their 50th anniversary of the city's police cadet officer program with a reunion at the convention center. An update on the water service line inspections. We have completed Area 1, which is the area bounded by Scarborough Avenue, Lake Drive, Bayard Avenue, and Christian Street. We are currently working in Area 2, which is the area bounded by Bayard Avenue, Brooklyn Avenue, the Boardwalk, East Lake Drive, and Penn Street. Progress in that area has been slow due to the water main and service line work that's been ongoing on Norfolk. It will pick back up now that the water main's completed, and will probably take through November before moving to Area 3, which is Country Club Estates. Just a reminder that updates on that project are provided on the current city projects page of the city website. Speaking of Norfolk, an update on the water main replacement. Water, sewer, and pavement work on Norfolk Street and Scarborough Avenue is progressing nicely. The water main and all water service lines have been replaced and are operational. All homeowner-funded sewer lateral work has been completed as well. We had 9 addresses who had their sewer laterals replaced. That includes one which was a new install, but they were able to have this done ahead of schedule to prevent cutting into the new pavement in 6 months. So that's 9 street cuts that we will not have in our newly paved street. Work continues on the sidewalk repairs and installing concrete curbs prior to milling and overlay of the roads, which is scheduled to begin November 1st, which is the Monday after Sea-Witch. 4 homeowners are replacing damaged sidewalks and driveways through our contract, and all work in that area is expected to be completed by November 18th. We appreciate the patience and accommodation of the residents in that area. Finally, I just wanted to mention a few things that we've been working on behind the scenes. So you'll recall quite a while back, we had some conversations about utilizing CTC Wireless to implement an online permitting system for our wireless communications facilities. So we should be receiving from them next week sort of a trial website that we will begin testing. So that is in the near future to be implemented. We have performed a review of our workers' compensation claims over the last year to better understand common claims and to develop a plan to better implement safety training and awareness amongst the staff. We today actually began working on a buildings evacuation plan, I should say, which was started several years ago but never completed, so work is progressing on that. And we also, in the near future, are meeting with department heads to begin identifying performance measures that we can track and include in next year's budget. And that's all I have to report, Mayor.
Good. Any questions of city manager up here? I'd just like to comment that I thought it was a brilliant idea on your part and Kevin for offering and educating the constituency on what the program is for replacing laterals and street repaving and getting them to buy into the project. So many times in the past, soon as we finish a street, it seems like the next week we start digging up the street. So that's good news, and thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for your support, Mayor and Commissioners. Appreciate it.
With that, we'll go to the city solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple litigation updates. The first one is on the 330 Hospitality Group case. This is the proposed rezoning that was rejected. There was oral argument held in that case on October 17. That was in the Court of Chancery. There's 3 claims in that case. One of them was an equitable claim. 2 of them were legal claims. The court dismissed the equitable claim, and when that happened, that court, which is a court of equity, lost jurisdiction of the case. So there were still 2 legal claims remaining. Typically, when the court loses jurisdiction, the case ends and needs to be refiled, but this court specifically provided the plaintiff 60 days to transfer the case to Superior Court. So they have till December 16 to transfer that case over to Superior Court, and we'll keep you updated as to whether that happens or not. On the Ocean Bay Mart case, I'm looking down at Commissioner Sharp because I promised you all that this was 100% done. This was a Supreme Court case, and the Supreme Court affirmed the Court of Chancery in that case, which was a win for the city. So the one thing I forgot about is you can motion for re-argument in the Supreme Court. So there's been a motion for a re-argument filed. We don't know if we'll get to do a response to that motion. You only get to file a response if the court requests it, and it hasn't at this point. So we don't know when the court will decide that. You know, it's a motion for re-argument. I hope it's a swift denial and we're done. But, you know, I guess never say never because I did once and I was wrong.
I'm glad you answered that before I asked.
I anticipated the question.
Thank you.
In the Margaret versus Rehoboth Beach Board of Adjustment case, as you recall, that the Board of Adjustment was affirmed in that case, but there's a motion to appeal, or there's an opportunity to appeal that case or that decision, and that opportunity to appeal, by my count, would expire October 26th, and there's not been an appeal filed as of yet, to my knowledge.
Very good. Any questions of the city solicitor? If not, thank you very much, Glenn. With that, the next item of business is departmental reports. There are no oral reports to give, but there are written reports embedded in the agenda for building and licensing and also for the police department. With that, we'll go to the next item, which is board and, actually, I think we normally insert in here the Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company. Chuck, the fire chief, just gave it to me today. We'll get it embedded into the agenda afterwards. Some of the highlights are that for August 2022, they had 92 fire responses, 389 ambulance responses, and some other data here. The times the siren has been activated, particularly of interest to those that live under or near the siren, has been 0 in this last period. They had a firefighters 5K run fundraiser that was successful. They had ice cream social last night. I think it was their first one, and it was well attended. And that was over at the fire department here. Always want to make sure your smoke alarms are in working order. New 10-year smoke detectors are available now, and don't forget to check your carbon monoxide detector. That is from the Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company. In terms of board and commission reports, the Board of Adjustments getting forgiveness from me until they get a new chair, and then reports will resume. Ditto for the Planning, Parks and Shade Tree Commission. They're now without a chair, so they give forgiveness until they get a new chair and get on board. With that, I did get a Planning Commission report just last night, and basically there were three things that, if you recall, they're working on a request from us to look into the rezoning of the auto property on the highway. The applicant did not show up, and so they deferred that to the next meeting. The next item on the Planning Commission's agenda was a preliminary review of a partitioning application for 7, 9, and 11 Cookman Street. And if you recall, the process for partitioning is they have a preliminary review, right? And they met all that criteria. The application was deemed complete, I believe, and so that will go to the next step at one of the next meetings. The third bullet item here makes a note of that they were going to consider proposed amendments to the Planning Commission's bylaws, plus consideration of proposed amendments to the rules of procedure. They deferred that. They had a minimum quorum, and the quorum included 2 members that are outgoing, and they just decided to defer on that till the new members were on board. Did I characterize everything all right? So again, that's from the Planning Commission. With that, we'll go to the next note where there's on the agenda is committee reports. I don't know if there's any oral reports. Nobody submitted anything for a written report. Do you have something
like to
short,
just-
short and sweet?
Yeah, I'd like to give just a quick update. The Environment Committee met yesterday, and much of the meeting was to discuss the offshore wind special meeting we had on September 27th. And the Environment Committee concluded that they would offer that the mayor and commissioners support the offshore wind projects while maintaining the need for little impact to visualization and to have minimal impact to visualization and environmental concerns. So broadly, would suggest that we support the 2 projects, but understand the need to take a position on visual impacts and anything that may harm the environment.
Very good. Would you mind submitting something in writing?
yeah,
A little report. I know you just met yesterday, I think.
And just another FYI, not intended for discussion now, but I suspect at our next meeting, we will be recommending to the mayor and commissioners that there be a phased-in ban on the use of handheld gas-powered lawn equipment. So just to get that out there, I won't suggest that would come until about another month or so.
Yeah, and I'd prefer to get that in writing also, so that we know what we're reacting to. Thank you very much. With that, no other committee reports have been identified. We'll go to the liaison reports. For the Chamber of Commerce, there is no liaison. I'm standing in. I hope to be elected to that position later today. With that, I'm going to defer any reporting right now until the end of year reporting later in the agenda, of which there is a support document. With that, we'll go to Commissioner Jay Legree as the liaison to the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society.
Just want to remind everybody that the needlework exposition at the museum will go on until the 6th of November when it closes. So if you haven't, this is incredible, the work that's down there. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, sneak on down and visit the needlework exhibition that's down there. We have some really talented folks, and they have a good number of entries. I mean, like, I don't know how many, maybe not 100, but not far from it. We have some talented people in this town. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to liaison report for Rehoboth Beach Main Street. Commissioner Shanowski is the liaison.
We are fortunate to have Greer Manival and Dan Slagle here with us today.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Dan Slagle, Executive Director of Rehoboth Beach Main Street. We have a very busy fall, so I wanted to mention some items that are in the works. And the first off, we are attending tomorrow the Rehoboth Beach Homeowners Association meeting. It will be at the Camp Rehoboth Meeting Room, so Main Street will be a presence at that meeting. Also, the block party we just this past Sunday was a huge success, I believe. There was a lot of attendance. We actually had a tent set up and giving out information about volunteering with Main Street and our different events coming up. So, and the weather was absolutely perfect this time after many cancellations. So it was really happy to attend. Also, we are excited, and I have again, I like to show different things. We have our fashion show. It's called On the Avenue. It is Sunday, November 13th from 1 to 4, which I'm really excited about because we have a lot of the downtown realtors that are involved. Retailers that are involved in this fashion show. So for me, it's promoting downtown, and we also get to see a lot of our retailers. So please, if you can, attend. Also, our Community Unity Dinner, which is every year, and we have a poster here that is scheduled for Sunday, December 4th, and it's 4:30 to 7:30. So that is in December. Also, we are planning a holiday stroll. It's kind of replacing our Cocoa Crawl that we had for downtown. And it's going to be all about caroling. It's going to have Mr. and Mrs. Claus. We are, it's going to be a dancing snowman. It's going to be more of a Hallmark small town event. So we want to have specials. A lot of the retailers are going to have special. Restaurants are going to have specials. And that is going to be on Saturday, December 10th from 1 to 4. So a lot of fun events for the holiday season coming up. We also, every Saturday through October and hopefully November, we have a wine tasting event at Love's Liquors. And that is from 4 to 7. Please, if you can, come by. It's called Sip and Learn. You can learn all about different types of wines, and they serve chocolates. So it's just a fun event on the weekend. And also, Rehoboth in Bloom, in progress is our canal side garden. And that's in progress, and more information to follow. Greer?
Thank you. Greer Manival, I'm president of the board. And in case your calendar isn't full and you have friends coming to town over Thanksgiving and all, we have our self-guided walking tours that are up and running via phone. And $10, you can log in, and as in our household, we would get my younger ones, the niece and nephew, who know how to actually do all of this, but it's actually pretty easy because I did it myself. And so do. And it really focuses on learning all about Rehoboth in the 19th century, and that's really the key focus of this tour, which I think is kind of a nice change of pace on things with regard to that. I want you to know also that December 17th at noon, we are going to be part of the Wreaths Over America again. and that is going to be at Epworth Cemetery.
Yes.
And we had a tremendous turnout last year, which was the inaugural day for us with this. And any questions about it, anything that you need, feel free to call our office and we'll be able to connect you with the right people and/or give you the information. You know, one of the things that we've really tried to reach out to and reaching out to the residents, and we're thrilled that we've had such an amazing response. And I think it's because of all the things that we're doing from the residents to volunteer and to come help and to come, you know, get to know people. And you realize when there's new people in town that have just moved here and so on and so forth, it's a great opportunity to build that community and all of those, the residents as well as the businesses. So we're thrilled about that. So if you know of anyone who is looking for something, please have them stop by. We'd love to. We've got 6 different committees going and a number of different programs going. So we'd love to connect them with someone so that no one's alone to do this. Any questions? If not, just get in touch with us, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to the next liaison for the Cape Henlopen Senior Center, and again, it's Commissioner Ed Stranowski.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 things I have for them. Their next pancake breakfast will be January 12th, 2023, and they have their annual holiday fair November 19th, 2022. That's all I've got from them.
January 12th, starting
I was hoping they were going to
8
have one in December.
8:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Ed. With that, we've concluded the liaison reports. We'll go to the first item of old business, which is to consider nominations for commission, board, liaison, and committee appointments. If you recall at the last workshop, we went over all these. I think there are 2 new additions that I sent out to you earlier, so there should be no surprises. If you recall, the Board of Adjustment, Parks and Shade Tree Commission, and the Planning Commission, I have the privilege as mayor to make the nominations. And of course, they need concurrence by the balance of majority of the commissioners. Excuse me. For all the other committees, the nominations came from the chairs of each committee. And those members of those committees, which are advisory committees, are just reappointed on an annual basis. They don't have terms other than, if you will, a 1-year term, and they serve until replaced. So what I'd like to do, because these have certain terms on it, how I would like the motion is to move to approve the nomination of, state a name and state when the term expires, and then do the second and the third. That make sense?
No.
Yeah, Mayor, can we just do an entire slate of all of the nominations?
I guess, Mayor, you could do it as provided in the October 19 version of the
Yeah, we could do that, because I did highlight in yellow the entire slate. So if you feel comfortable for that, I would take a motion to confirm appointments or reappointments to all those that are in the document dated October 19th, 2022. And yellow highlighted.
I'm fine with that, but should they also be read at least one time into the record, or is that not necessary?
We probably should read them one time just so it's on the audio recording and people can come back and watch.
Well, then let me go, for expediency, let me just go through my nominations, then I'll read the committee nominations if there are. The following slate has been nominated by either the mayor and/or the committee chairs. For Board of Adjustment, Edie Herron, a term expiring 2025. William Pearlstein, term expiring 2025. Mark Saunders, term expiring 2023. For the Parks and Shade Tree Commission, Laura Ritter for reappointment, term expiring 2025. Renee Seinman, term expiring 2024. Carolyn Diefendorfer, term expiring 2024 with noted one vacancy. For the Planning Commission, the nominees are Susan Gay, term expiring 2025. Earl Stockdale, term expiring 2025. Susan Stewart, term expiring 2025. For the committees, Animal Issues Committee, Bob Harrison, Cheryl Crow, Deb Ward, Marcia Maldies, Terry Smith for reappointment, and a new appointment to Melissa Riesco. For the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, Brian Hancock, Craig Thier, Frank Cole, Howard Menaker, Jimmy Horty III, Kathleen Honey Fisher, Patricia Davis, and Stephen Kurtzmans, all reappointments. For the Environment Committee, Charlie Garlow, Eric Seward, Heather Metz, Joseph Vecchio, Mary Peck, Nettie Green, Catherine Bergwin as reappointments, and Carolyn Diefendorfer as new appointment. For the Street and Transportation Committee, David Diefendorfer, David Mann, Donna Mabry, Elise Moore, John Gauger for reappointment, and Christopher Galanti for new appointment. For the Tree and Green Infrastructure Committee, Andrea Hoffman, Catherine Downs, Liza Trey, Robert Van Horn as reappointments, and new nominations, Susan Gay and Jennifer Duncan. And for Chamber of Commerce, Liaison Mayor Stan Mills. Can I get a motion to?
Mayor, I move approval of the nominations as read.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ed Chernowski and a second by Commissioner Tony Sharp to approve the nominations for the entire slate as written and on the October 19th support document and as read. Is there any further discussion? Any members of the public have anything to say? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the slate are confirmed unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next item of business. This is old business B. Consider amendments to Chapter 227 Solid Waste, Article 2, Rules and Regulations regarding time restrictions imposed on putting out and retrieving containers as established in Section 227-9, collection of refuse time limits, and in Section 227-11, collection of yard waste and recyclables, time limits, in order to allow for an additional 4-hour window for putting out bins for refuse, yard waste, and recycling. And as you can see, embedded in the agenda is a proposed amendment to the existing codes as noted in the agenda, essentially changing the collection earliest time that things can be put out from 6 p.m., increasing a 4-hour window to 2 o'clock p.m. This was discussed at the last meeting, and there was a consensus to at least put this on the agenda for consideration. We'll do this by going up here and getting input from the commissioners, then we will go to the members of the public. Anybody up here like to say anything?
I've got comments, but I think I want to wait until after hearing from the public.
Okay. Anybody? I'm willing to defer also. I mean, my statements, I think, are valid that I made at the last meeting, frankly. With that, do we have any members of the public? Maybe we'll start with the vendors first. Is there any vendors here that would like to speak? And then we'll go to the regular members of the, did you want to add anything? You're fine. You're fine, okay. Just identify yourself, if you would, your relationship to the city, Karen. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Karen Kolobielski. I have KK Can Care, trash valet service. We've been in business for 7 years. And really, when I look at the ordinance, it seems that KK Can Care and the city of Rehoboth both have the same objective in mind. We both want to get the trash, recycle, and the yard waste containers out and back in a timely fashion so that it minimizes the time that the containers are on the street. And I want to let you know why the 2 p.m. start still is not going to work for KK Can Care. For one thing, an example was on Thursday, October 13th. And that was a day that's off-season and there was not even recycle. So the trash containers on the south side needed to be put back on Thursday. Trash containers on the north side had to be checked to see if they had trash and put out. On Thursday, October 13th, there was an 80% chance of rain from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. And it ended up that it poured from 1:30 till 5 o'clock. Local sunset on that day was at 6:23. So how can KK Can Care get that done from 2 o'clock to dark, which was 6:23? Another example was on Thursday, October 20th. The trash containers on the south side had to be put back. Trash containers on the north side had to be checked and put out. And this happened to be the week that recycle was also going. So the recycle containers on the north and the south side for the whole city had to be checked and put out. Sunset was 6:15 p.m. So how do we get that done from 2 p.m. to dark? And the prior examples are off-season. In season, it involves more cans, more customers, and more obstacles. And another thing in the off-season, everyone thinks that we get done faster. And one of the problems in the off-season is that, well, it's not a problem, but it has an issue for us time-wise, is the city goes from having 3 trucks getting rid of the trash to down to just 1, or from having 2 in the summer down to 1, which means that the trash does not get emptied as early. In most of the summer months, with 2 city trash cans, usually the city was done by 12 o'clock or 1 or so. And the same with the recycle. In the summer months, they come with 3 recycle trucks. One does the south side, one does the north side, and the other one does usually Country Club and Schoolview. So today, they're down to 2 trucks. So even though it's off-season, it doesn't mean we get done sooner. So on those days that we have to put the trash back and then put the recycle out, we're later getting started because we have to do it timed by when the city or the recycle gets done. Now, the recycle's not an issue for putting out because that's on Friday and they get done, if they get done later, it doesn't really affect us putting cans out since nothing goes on Saturday. So what works best for KK Can Care would be, it seems like there's 3 options. The 2 p.m. does not really solve our issue. There's not enough daylight to get it done. So one option would be if we could start earlier than that, and possibly maybe it wouldn't be something that it would only pertain to vendors doing it instead of everyone doing it, because if you're only putting out 1 can, there's really not an issue on getting it out. But when you're putting out over 400 cans, it's difficult to get it done in daylight from 2 to 6, or it will soon be 2 to 5 when the time changes. So and it seems like that people that work in yard work, they are not, if you're a business, you're not allowed to cut grass, do yard work in the city on Sundays. Is that correct? Businesses are not allowed. But as a homeowner, I can cut my grass. I can do whatever in my yard on a Sunday, because the issues are different for a business and for an individual homeowner. And that seems to be the case here. And I see a lot of cans out that certainly aren't ours. On the days that it is putting back yard waste and then putting out trash, it seems that the main way that people do is to put the one can back. It reminds them, oh, the next goes tomorrow, I'll put it out. And I don't think anyone is purposely wanting to break the code. It just seems that that's what works time-wise. And I think that I know that KK Can Care wants to get the cans put back, and we want them, put them out in a timely fashion, and we want to get them back. So,
Thank you, Karen.
okay.
Any other members of the public like to speak? Your name and identify yourself and
Carolyn
relationship.
Diefendorfer, city resident. I agree with Karen. I think, and I said this at the last meeting, but I'm going to say it again. The whole issue initially was people leaving cans out for days on end. And when they go to put a can back, if there's a pickup the next day, to put a can back out, it's just a 1-for-1 switch. That can that was emptied the day before could be left till 9, but we're saying the new can can't be put out until 2. If they're just swapping them, there's still only one can sitting on the street. The big issue, I think, is the south side, because we have pickups throughout the year 4 days a week, whereas on the north side, it's 3 days, and it's only when you've got yard waste only every other week. If you take Wednesday out, you're dealing with 2 days versus 3 days. And again, they're just swapping an empty can for a full can. I think that's the big thing for me, is there's still only one can on the street, and the streets are a lot less cluttered with cans now than they were years ago before this was originally put into place. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yes, sir. Identify yourself and your affiliation with the city.
David Grossman, 31 Olive Avenue. I'm been a homeowner here for a little over a year, and I'm a customer of Karen and Kyle's KK Can Care service. And since we are here as a part-time residents, it is really incredibly helpful to us to allow us to participate in trash, in recycling, and yard waste. And the yard waste in particular, because our property has a lot of really old big trees on it, that, every weekend there's a whole lot to pick up. And being able to use those yard waste cans that she then brings out and then takes back for us, if that service goes away, the trees don't know that the service is there or not, so the trees are gonna just keep falling as they usually do. But we'll have to put our stuff into bags, bundle up twigs, and put them by the curb, and we'll be, that's allowed to sit out throughout, up to a week and a half, 2-week period, because yard waste is only every other week. So any consideration that you might give to be able to accommodate them, the last week ago Thursday was the first Friday without recycling services, and all up and down the block, I thought, oh my goodness, it must be recycling day, because they were recycling cans up and down Olive Avenue. Of course, mine wasn't out, and I said, okay, I'm gonna roll mine out. Maybe she forgot me. Well, actually, it turns out, no, she didn't forget me. She was right. All my neighbors were the ones who were wrong, that was actually not collected on that day. So any consideration you can give to accommodate, I'm familiar with the issues that led to this being put in the code, which was keeping people going out, people leave on Sunday, put the can out, they come back on Friday, come back on Saturday, roll their can back in, it sits there for 5 days, even 6 days. So I think that, in her case, all the customers of hers, including ourselves and our household, we want to be part of the solution to the problem, not to be part of the problem. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public like to speak? If not, we'll bring it back to the commissioners. They just want to remind you, as they did a little bit, the original intent of this was somewhat of generally an aesthetics thing, getting the cans off the street, especially when they're put out there by non-residents going back to their primary residence and leaving them out there till they return, which could be anywhere from 3 days to a week to 2 weeks. But also, in addition to aesthetics, it had to do with putting them out too early, full, them getting blown over, and vermin getting in there and causing problems. So today's conversation is a result of constituent complaints, and I hear them loud and clear, especially because I was one of the authors of the original law. As I mentioned last time, I've been looking at this as the amount of time that is free from cans. That's why the optimum would be leave it at 6 p.m. But I also understand the darkness, and I understand the desire to start earlier. I have some other comments, but I'd like to defer to other commissioners first. Ed, you had wanted to start, or Tony?
No, Ms. Sharp, please.
No,
I think it's stupid that we're even talking about this. We've got a vendor that, there were not complaints. There was one complaint from one individual that frankly complains about everything. At the last time, and I wasn't here at that meeting, but I did watch it, the owner of KK Can Care very articulately stated that right now, cans can be out for 27 hours. She has assured us that it never needs to be out for more than 24 hours. I understand, Mayor, that you put a chart together, which was a little confusing, but she wants to go from 27 to 24. That means less time out on the streets. That's all the sense that I need to make on having a change that allows this company to do business in a safe manner that I think provides services to 400 households, which is probably at least 800 of our constituents. I don't even know why we're talking about this. It should be changed to 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Before I want to back off on this, I think I'd like to find out some more about it.
Okay, well, I was hoping to resolve it today. If not, then we can defer this. But, what I keep hearing over and over again and from Commissioner Srnowski and from the vendor is what works best for them, what works best for them. I'm not sure that that's prudent to be designing an ordinance to accommodate a particular business.
That's what I wanted.
What we're trying to do is do something. I didn't hear one word about changing a model, changing the time, going a little later, hiring additional personnel. I thought by going from 6 p.m. to 2 p.m. that was generous. That's an extra 4 hours. And so I'm willing to either stop it and start enforcing what we have now, or
I'm
changing to the 2 p.m. timeframe.
Well, I think that's fine. We should do that, and then we'll see how 400 households feel.
Anybody else?
well, the last time we talked about this, I think we're looking for a compromise here. And the compromise that I see on the table is an additional 4 hours. And what's changed for the vendor that has apparently spurred all of this in the first place, and potentially rightfully so to bring it up, is the growth of the business. The darkness has not changed from the time the business was originally opened. What has changed is the volume. I believe the statistic we were given was about 70 as it was rolled out, as it got going, and now it's about 400. So I mentioned this last time, and I think another commissioner did as well, that it seems to me that working toward a compromise means both sides give something. And I don't see any discussion about any other accommodations other than more time and we've already got an additional 4 hours on the table. So I guess I'm looking for, it's just so one-sided to me, and I think it's a dangerous precedent. If I were any other business in town that felt they were having some kind of harm to them by any other ordinance, I'd be watching this very, very closely to see how I could advantage myself using this as a model. Maybe that's valid, maybe you feel it isn't. I respect everybody's opinion, but this bothers me from the standpoint that, to me, the city is moving in the best way we see fit for everybody involved, or some of us see fit for everybody involved, and I've heard nothing about meeting us an additional way.
Well,
I have a bigger issue just beyond the vendor, and that's enforcement. I mean, we can make it anytime we want. It's all about enforcement. So, and it's not KKK, that's the issue. It's really the residents that are just putting their cans out anytime they want. So that, overall, that's the bigger issue, is enforcement. So why we're even talking about times, make it anytime you want.
Well, we brought this up last time. I
Right.
think the mayor was very, very astute to remind everybody that we might need to have a different look, a different emphasis on enforcement.
well, if I didn't say it directly, I may have intimated. I thought I said it directly, and that the premise here is that when we change the code or whatever we result in, even if we do nothing, we will start enforcing the code, period. And that's not just applicable to the vendor, that's applicable to everybody, because we've got constituents now that put it out early too, and as KK King here mentioned.
And honestly, for me, with a more stringent enforcement, to me, an additional 4 hours is a good thing. Maybe an additional 6 hours is a better thing. But I don't know where it stops, and I don't know where there's any other partnership going on with the city. If anybody can help me on this, I'd appreciate it.
Shall we appoint a task force? I don't know what else to do.
No, if we can't do it up here, then we need to drop it, for goodness sake.
Right.
Well, I think what brought us to this point is to try to solve our problem. And if we drop it, we haven't solved anything. We're just back where we started.
Well, so
Maybe that's what we want to do. Oh, excuse me, back where we started with enforcement.
well, that's to Commissioner Bennett's point.
But this was predicated on
Yes.
this one, there was a resident that keeps complaining about cans going out too early. Wasn't that what Commissioner Shinowski, right? Wasn't that the issue? But that really, in my opinion, wasn't necessarily the vendor's issue. I think it was more, from what I see, it's more residents, individual residents, not necessarily the vendor. But if 2 o'clock doesn't work, I don't know what time works.
Right.
So if I can, these, in the code, we've got 6 and 9 PM. They were arbitrary. When we wrote the code, we just took times and put them in. Now we're dealing with the practicality of it a couple years later. And we understand that it's not practical for the largest business in town dealing with it. And because of the complaints we're getting, and Commissioner Bennett is right, it is probably mostly residents doing it. It's not practical for them either, because they're also putting it out early. So why are we not able to adapt it so it's something that works? And we're still solving the problem of cans being left out for days at a time by people that are here just on the weekends. I think we're hearing that it's not practical, so why don't we accommodate that?
I think I disagree with Commissioner Shinowski and Commissioner Bennett that with stating a fact that it's primarily the residential units doing that. We don't know. We don't have a count.
Drive down Henlopen Avenue. There's one resident that's had their can out for 3 weeks. It happens all the time. People leave and they leave their cans out.
I don't believe that we can characterize the entirety of the city as a majority of residents.
It's not the whole city.
putting them out.
But it's not the whole city.
But I'd like to get it resolved so that we can have enforcement. If we do nothing, then the message is to the city manager to enforce what we have. I agree, times have changed. And that's why I believe that we need to change the time and give a lot more time, because to just drop it and direct the city manager to start enforcing anything put out before 6 p.m., I think is unrealistic. And I think it's very realistic for the individual residents. But for the vendors, not so much so. But going to the previous model, which was 5 a.m., I think is ridiculous. Because again, you look at the time of, that it is open time for no waste cans on there. That means for the South, from starting at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, you can start putting out your trash.
Mayor, you're the one that suggested that.
No, I did not. 5 a.m. I did not. The city manager did. And that's why I disagreed with that and came back with 2 p.m.
Maybe we need to pick the trash up all on the same day.
That would be ideal, but I don't think it's realistic unless we go subcontract it out.
What if we, would you feel comfortable if we changed it 10 a.m., but also put a caveat in it that no can be out left for more than 24 hours?
No, because we can't measure that. What are we going to do? Have the trash can police on every block? Doing a little tab there. 38 Maryland Avenue is out at 10:05. 36th Avenue is out at 9:42.
We could mark each one with a tire marker.
Can I offer a suggestion? It seems like we have two, the issues, as I think I'm understanding this, is the standard for putting it out, which, you know, obviously I think is benefiting the homeowner contingent, you know, in terms of how you know, if they're going to leave or something like that. And obviously if they can't meet that, then they're going to hire the service to do that for them. You know, if they're leaving long before they can feasibly put the can out, and that's kind of where I think where the service steps in. And I think we can. I think that side of it, I think we could probably accommodate the service to the extent that we could. It's just in terms of how much time do they need in order to get it out in order for the thing, but it wouldn't be an extraordinary length of time, you know. And then the pickup side of it, which is a concern because the cans get left out, and I understand that their situation is that they want to be able to do it in such a way that they're not doing it 27 times, you know, a week, you know. But the other side of it is that we're dealing with sundown or whatever. So I'm thinking, this is just me thinking right now, which doesn't necessarily work very well, but in terms of enforcement, assuming that we're going to get serious about the enforcement side of things, that the clock starts for pickup when it gets picked up. And I know we don't know when that is, but the enforcement people could know when that is. I mean, why wouldn't they be able to know that? You know, just in terms, couldn't they make a phone call to Public Works and know when the trucks were out? And it wouldn't have to be like down to the second or anything. It could be within maybe 2 hours or something like that. But anyway, I'm just saying, if you're going to gig somebody for leaving their can out, you know, the enforcement person is going to do that, and he can ascertain that it's been out too long, I think with some reasonable knowledge, you know.
You're making it too hard and challenging. We need to ascribe to the KISS program and keep it simple. You know, a couple times people have disparaged this and indicated the single complainant. I've gotten complaints orally, but let's say dismiss my complaints. We've got the one guy that's been doing it. He's not wrong in my picture book. So you can try to dismiss them all you want. But again, who is offering the solutions that out of this conversation, we're going to direct the city manager to start enforcing it? The only thing on the table right now is he's gonna start enforcing that if it's out prior to 6 PM. And do we want that? So I have at least made an offer of something different.
And I'd make an offer of changing that to 10 a.m.
And you poo-poo us earlier for just picking random times. What is your rationale for 10 a.m.?
Because we just heard,
Because it accommodates the vendor. Why wouldn't 8 a.m. accommodate the vendor better? I'd like us all to calm down and give us a little more time to think about it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to call this to a close. And I thank you for coming, Karen. And we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. Thank you. Where are we? All righty, we're now at new business. Discuss, Liz. Oh, there she is. This is new business item A. First item of business is discuss tree mitigation plan on Delaware Avenue stemming from the loss of trees due to new construction at the Delaware Avenue Restroom facilities. That kind of gives you a big hint there. Let me see something. How do I reduce? The goal here, Liz is going to give us more background information or something, but what would like us to keep in mind what one of the objectives of this is for awareness of the commissioners, but it's also to be aware of I guess, situation that might be, is happening on Delaware as well as, I believe, on previous streets. And that situation is that when a plan is created, a rational plan, in my mind, is created, and the property owner that's sitting by one of these tree planting areas objects to it, what are we supposed to do? Are we going to start allowing each one to dictate what can and cannot go on as a street tree in front of them? And that's essentially, fairly bluntly, what I think part of our goal is here. So Liz, you want to go ahead and?
Sure. So you guys have the 2-block map up in front of you. But in general, question, why are we planting street trees? Not even this specific project. It aligns with our city's policies, goals, and values, right? Down to the CDP, our commitment to our tree city status, our reputation as a wooded seaside community, and all the other environmental benefits that go along with it, like stormwater interception, CO2 avoided, and energy reductions. And you guys have all heard me for probably hours talk about tree benefits, so we'll skip all that. This specific project, we did significant restroom enhancements on Delaware Avenue, right? And as part of that expansion, we removed 7 mature trees. So that resulted in a loss of about 70 inches of diameter. So when we were designing a mitigation and restitution plan for that tree loss, replacing it inch for inch, that pretty much took us to fully stocking both blocks of Delaware Avenue. So we're at about 76 inches in terms of our replacement plan. So it maybe called for like 2 more trees to fully stock that. And so this plan, we discussed it at length at the Trees and Green Infrastructure committee meetings, and the committee ultimately decided to support the plan and the use of our commemorative tree donations that are budgeted every year as partial funding for this tree planting project. So we were able to leverage that funding, and I was able to obtain a grant for the city through the Delaware Forest Service Urban Forestry Program, and that grant was announced at a commissioners meeting in the spring under the city manager's report with the previous city manager. So from there, we were able to finalize the tree species and the planting locations, and that is a lot of work and very difficult because there's so much that goes into it. We don't just pick a random tree that looks pretty and plop it in the ground, right? So we have to think about underground and above ground utilities. We have to think about where's the front door. So we're not blocking emergency access because we never want anybody to have to wait 5 seconds more than necessary in those situations. We talk about the adjacent landscaping and trees. We look at our existing signage and pay stations. We take into account the size of the opening, how much soil space we have, what kind of tree it can support. And we also look at the parking configuration so that there's a passageway when people can park, they can open their doors if it's parallel, and if it's head in or angled, that they have room to walk safely from the car to the sidewalk and they're not walking in the road. So, and there's probably a bunch of other things I'm forgetting that we look at, but it is very detailed. And in those considerations, that really addresses a majority of the objections we receive when we plant street trees. And when I say we, it's a problem that is not unique to Rehoboth in this instance. There was a study that came out on New York City's tree planting program, arguably the most successful in the whole country, the Million Trees. They received thousands of communication pieces from their street tree planting. And out of those thousands of touches of communication, 87% were complaints. 2% were thank yous, and the rest were information requests, right? So it's just a fact of life. Every one of you sitting up there knows that sometimes when we do what is the right thing and that what aligns with our policies and goals, we still receive feedback that's less than happy. And so this is where we get to the ask of today, besides the information. We need to decide and we need guidance on the staff end of how the commissioners want us to address any complaints about siting. So the complaint being, I don't want a street tree. I love trees, but I don't want a street tree directly in front of me, period. And they can come up with all sort of objections why, but at the end of the day, people have a certain sense of ownership of that space out to the road, whether it's right or not, whether there's a sidewalk or whether it's a 40-foot buffer of landscape on Henlopen Avenue. Because they partially maintain it and they have that a sense of attachment. It's been this way forever. So that is a hard thing to overcome when they're not talking about specific objections, and it's really more of a policy objection, right? So our policy is to carefully plant street trees to maintain that tree city status, the ideal of the tree-lined streets. In terms of outreach for this, like I said, we've spoken about it in several public meetings. I always send out a little postcard. I found that people don't like to open letters, that they tend to throw them away, but the postcard is bright blue and it has a city seal on the front, and it's much harder to throw those in the trash. That basically just says, we're planting these street trees, we'll take care of them, and then has my email and direct line on it for questions. Ongoing maintenance, we typically have weekly watering for the first 2 growing seasons if there's not enough rain during that week. Structural pruning, so the first few years of the tree's life, it's really important that somebody does a good job pruning it, and that someone is usually me because I don't trust anybody else. And then once they get to be a little bit bigger, if they're under a certain size, we still do them in-house. I have a part-time employee. And if they get beyond his reach, then we send them over to our subcontractors, typically a tree contractor we bid out every winter. And then the last thing is just the timeline. So right now we have our contractor, I gave them the tentative date at the mid to end of November. And that is it. I think we have a couple of pictures of the species too.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Let me just summarize one of the letters we got. It's embedded in the agenda. It's from Jane and Terry Renzi at 39 Delaware Avenue. I'll show you on the picture later where it is. They indicate in summary that they have a house at 39 Delaware Avenue. It's a 100-plus-year-old white Victorian. 3 bullet points here. One is the house is set back only 3 feet from the sidewalk, and the front steps start right at the sidewalk. They also have a screened-in porch. Within a few years, they expect that any tree planted will reach the screens and house and cause damage to them. Also, that limbs will likely cause issues with ascending their stairs and entering their house. Number two, we have an old terracotta sewer line, which is subject to blockage by tree roots. Number three, one of the great pleasures of their cottage, they say, is for the front porch. They eat most of our meals there. They entertain there. In summary, they are saying that they enjoy the clear view from their porch to across the street. And summarize that a tree at the planned location will in short time severely block our street view with dense tree branches. Again, that's embedded in the agenda. You can read it in entirety. As far as the support document in the agenda, which is up on the screen now for orientation, here's Wilmington Avenue up here, and here's Delaware Avenue. That's the subject street. If you recall, down here at the right side, just off screen, is the Delaware Avenue Restroom facilities. Here is First Street, South First Street here. Here is the other Delaware, and somewhere up in here would be Second Street. So what we're looking at, Lynn, and correct me if I make any mischaracterizations, we're looking at all the noted planting spots for the trees. And where you do not see any bubbles, that is because there are trees populating those areas, is my understanding. As far as the 39 Delaware Avenue, I believe that's this house here. And as you can see from here, and I think there some trees here.
So if we skipped a spot, it might be because it has a tree. There's like 30 to 40 trees on those 2 blocks, but we also have a lot of other things in the way, like the parking stations, signage, driveways, utilities, drop lines. So every blank spot may not be an existing or new tree. It may just have to remain blank.
So this is an enlargement. I think this is 39. I think this is 39 here. But there are trees on each side, and we want to put them, you want to put them back in that area there. So does anybody have a question just on the map? Let me go to the selected tree species. You want to say anything about these? Are these trees that have huge, wide canopies? Are they more vertical or?
No, they're if you read about them, they're technically either a large shrub or a small tree. So we have several of this particular one, the Japanese tree lilac, planted on Rehoboth Avenue in the median when you get closer to the bandstand. And at the, gosh, they've got to be 15 years old now, and they're about 12 to 15 feet tall and 6 inches in diameter. So you can see they're not a gigantic tree, nor is the golden rain tree, because we just don't have the soil space or the overhead utility space to have large trees on the street. So these are small ornamental trees.
Small, and you gave us a height, and you gave us the diameter of
And
the
even
trunk. How about the
width.
diameter of the tree? But from the trunk, is it going to be, can it be trimmed to 4 feet, 3 feet?
Well, you mean like 4 feet wide?
No, from the trunk, so 8-foot diameter, say.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
The
How wide is the canopy of them?
using this gentleman's example, he's going to have a tree planted in the area between the sidewalk and the street. He's got, say, a 4 or 5 foot, say a 4 foot sidewalk there.
I think the right of way in that area is actually bigger than 8 feet. So we have larger than 3 foot to plant in. We have a 5, and then we have a 5 foot
Well,
sidewalk.
let's just take it a 2 foot area in the grass there, and just approximate numbers.
I would say the canopy, because remember, even if it says this tree can be 25 feet tall, it's not going to reach 25 feet tall in these growing conditions. So I would say if the canopy, if everything goes well with the tree, maybe 15 feet wide possibly, so 7.5 on each side, 7.5 over the sidewalk way, and then 7.5 over into the street.
What I'm trying to do is validate this gentleman's concerns with a tree there. Can we prune it sufficiently so that it won't hit his screens and damage
Oh,
his
yeah.
screens?
Absolutely.
In terms of some of the other comments that he makes, in terms of the setback of, we've just heard Liz say, yeah, it can be trimmed. In terms of his concern about terracotta sewer line, every other house, I think, around here has terracotta sewer line, but it is a concern that can be voiced to Liz. Then you've got, he wants a clear, open view shed from his porch. So I personally, I think we have to decide, what do we want to be? We're a tree city. Do we let the constituency choose whether they want a tree or not? You know, I'm leaning toward that they have a concern, they come and voice them to Liz, and Liz is professional enough to talk with city manager perhaps if she needs backup, and makes a decision on moving a tree to the left or the right, frontwards, backwards, what type of tree to put in there. Like any conversation up here before we go to the public?
Well, if I can make one more
Yes, ma'am.
recommendation, whatever you guys decide to do is absolutely fine with me. This is just one specific example. We will have more. So as long as we're consistent, and if we say anybody who doesn't want a tree doesn't have to have a tree, that's fine if that's how we want to go, just as long as it's everybody and not just this person has to have one and this person doesn't.
Thank you.
Liz, this is the only complaint we've received from that mailing that you sent?
We haven't
for
sent the mailing out. I was
Oh,
advised to hold off until you guys were properly informed. I've been out there several times for multiple hours. Like, we go with the contractor and we stake out the location, and then we take photos to make sure that the tree is installed in exactly the right spot. Because months later, with 30-something trees, I don't remember them all even. And I actually happened to talk to them because they came out and asked what I was doing. So their main complaint to me, the couple that they brought up, I was able to say, well, yes, we can prune the tree. We're getting it as far from your sewer line as humanly possible, and these trees are not known for invading sewer routes or sewer lines. But if you have a leaky line and you have a shrub near it, the shrub is going to get in there. So that's something unfortunately, that's a fact around here. And then they also said it would block their view of the road, which, to an extent, if you're sitting on your porch, maybe initially when the tree is planted, because it'll be so small, it'll only be 10 feet tall. But after a couple years and it grows and we raise the limbs up, when they sit on their porch, they'll have a 6-inch trunk blocking their view, a 6-inch trunk in a 50-foot wide space. So it'd be really a minimally invasive thing.
Liz, has there ever been an instance where you have planned on putting a street tree in, and after hearing concerns from the person's home that it's in front of, that you're like, oh yeah, that's a legitimate concern, I'm actually not going to plant it here?
I can't think of any, but yeah, that would be absolutely reasonable if they brought up a point that we had no idea about, because we haven't even had the utilities marked. I can see water and sewer, I can see above ground utilities. There's going to be underground utility lines, like a electric line going to a new house, that we may not know where that is, and when we get them marked, or somebody has irrigation underground that we don't see and they're not supposed to have. So yeah, we have to be able to, or we start digging and we hit gigantic hunks of concrete. So yeah, stuff does certainly happen when you're doing work, and you have to be able to adjust. And I would like to think that we're all reasonable people, and if somebody brought up an objection that we couldn't reasonably resolve, that yeah, we would have to adjust. And for that reason, I always have a few other spots of people who want street trees that I can always slide the tree to so it doesn't go to waste.
And if someone says, hey, I think this is a problem, please don't plant it here, and you still plant it anyway, is there an appeal process?
For what the city does on city property?
Yeah.
I don't think there's an official appeal, but there would definitely be no codified process for what is done on city property. Only tree appeals would be for private property decisions.
Liz, is it just these two species, or?
Yep, so part of when you do there's a lot of ways you can design street tree plantings, and it depends on the block and the area, but it gives a good sense to community when you can go down a block and it will, in the late spring, all of the Japanese lilac trees will be in full bloom and it'll be beautiful. And that signs a certain sense of community and identity to that block. So it's nice to have that consistency.
Thank you.
What are we requiring the homeowner to do with that tree? They have to maintain it, trim it?
No, as I said, the city, we do the 2-year watering, and we do all of the pruning and maintenance. If it dies, we replace it. And we take care of it's codified. If it, for some reason, these are very carefully selected not to do damage to sidewalks, but say something does happen, that is covered in our code that the city will take responsibility for that. The only thing the property owner would have to do would really mow the grass that is not in the mulch around it, right? So the landscaper can't take a clean swipe across the right-of-way anymore. That's the only difference.
And are there any of us that don't have city trees?
Any of us what?
That don't have city trees?
I don't have any city
You don't?
trees.
I don't have city trees.
I have some
I have city like
line trees
Yeah.
that are half city, half mine.
You have the whole woods across from you. A lot
Liz?
different than street trees, though.
Liz, just two things. Could you clarify? When you were talking about New York City, do you know whether or not they administer their project with the, I think you mentioned 87% were negative
Yeah.
comments. Did they stay the course with their project?
Yes, absolutely.
So-
Million Trees campaign.
Yeah.
It's the most laudable one that's ever been accomplished in the United States.
So I thought just a few moments ago, you outlined the solution to this, which is we have a staff member who is responsible for this, along with, at the moment, an interim city manager. And yes, we've got a complaint, but you have the flexibility to talk to the property owner and make sure we're understanding what the situation is. And if there is anything that you could recommend that would solve it, you would do it.
Yes, like in this specific case, they just don't want a street tree.
And therein, to me, lies the problem with bringing every single complaint to the commissioners. We cannot legislate based on complaints.
No, that, yeah.
I think that the process that you described is very reasonable.
Yeah, the intent was never to bring each complaint here
Right.
as if we were appeal board. It's to give them direction to go forward. And I think, I articulated earlier that we're a tree city, and I think our plan should be enacted. However, I do think that we need to be open ears to listen to any complaints and validate those complaints. And if they're not valid in the mind of the arborist and the city manager together, then the tree will be put up. And I think Liz has indicated that there are some that just don't want a street tree. They don't want it. And so are they going to dictate our street tree program?
I say no to that. I think we have a reasonable approach and a reasonable execution.
I see this as very similar to what we've faced with at this Parks and Shade Tree Commission, where we're listening to appeals about tree removal, and this is more or less like requesting the removal of a proposed tree. Where you're going to make me have a tree, that kind of thing. So I would I think the city certainly is within its rights to, come up with a program for street beautification, however it's going to function, and to make certain accommodations if you feel are reasonable. But beyond that, I guess if somebody has like a real beef about the thing, then I think maybe we could consider an appeal process, let's say to Parks and Shade, and let them hash it out. And if they feel that the what the city, similar to, with regard to the decisions made by the city arborist by Parks and Shade that, was not warranted, or you were, overlooking something or whatever, but that would be their appeal process, should they choose to take it to appeal, and they're gonna have to pay for that and all that kind of stuff. But if they're really bound and determined not to have a tree. But I think the city, should have, the control to be able to, carry out the project as we see fit. So,
I'd like to see us be flexible. I just, we have a reputation as maybe not as compliant and friendly and et cetera as we could be. But maybe if his house wasn't grandfathered, he wouldn't be so concerned about the space. Or maybe we could grandfather the space. I don't know. But
Well, I don't know how many appeals we're gonna get or how many complaints we're gonna get,
Yeah, and
but,
that's where you have to-
Bunky may be onto something
yeah,
good
he
there.
might be.
Because I've watched some, not all of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission meetings, but maybe Glenn or Liz, you can validate this for me. I recall people complaining and seeking an appeal right after a tree is planted.
Yes, well, so Mayor, I don't know if I remember one that's come right after a tree has been planted, but it is interesting because a right of appeal is ripe right after a tree is planted, because there is a process in the Park and Shade Tree, or in the tree regulations, that allows a person to go to the Park and Shade Tree Commission and ask for the removal of a street tree.
But it
So the
has
moment
to be replaced in the
it
code.
does have to be replaced.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
So-
caveat.
What are the reasons?
To remove them?
Yeah.
Well, they've had them before where they're they're interfering
Driveway.
with the sidewalk or their driveway or their front walkways. The tree's gotten large, but so people will come in and say this tree now, or this tree is the ginkgo tree that was dropping fruit that smelled and all that.
Yeah, I think the most common one that is approved street tree removal is one in the footprint of a new home's new driveway, because the old home didn't have a driveway or curb cut. So that does happen pretty frequently.
Mayor, what's the goal here?
The goal is to give them guidance, the arborist and the city manager guidance on how to deal with constituents that do not want a designated tree in front of their property. And I think that some of us have articulated a process forward, one process without an appeal process, and a second is a possible appeal process. Now, we're revising something called the tree code, which we have yet to finish, obviously, that could be a consideration there. And that would be different circumstances than what was just articulated, because it's not an existing tree and having to be replaced, it's a proposed tree. So we've got some thinking to do. I'm comfortable with either. I like giving them the appeal process, but I could also support just directing them to do their thing and making the best decision.
I'm supportive of the latter, which is Liz already articulated how it would work. And I trust in her expertise along with the interim city manager in the short term.
And I agree, for proposed tree locations.
Correct.
Right.
I concur with that as well. However, I don't want us getting complaints about them. I'd rather that if someone's serious and Liz has not been able to consider their concerns to a satisfactory manner, that they go before the Tree and Shade Commission.
Well, see, you've just added another step beyond what Commissioner Sharp and I said. You are allowing for, and we would need to put in an appeal process.
Absolutely, I think we should have an appeal process. Why wait until the tree is planted and then have them appeal it? let's give them the opportunity to appeal it beforehand.
I think because that's not how it was originally intended. It was intended for the scenarios like the city solicitor and I said, like where there is no other option, this established tree is in the footprint of the new driveway. It's not meant as like a policy type, because really the objection of not wanting a street tree is a policy objection. We object to how the city's policy of street tree planting is individually affecting us. And not to throw a wrench in everything, but I do believe, and you guys will know better than me, that doesn't the CDP call for a street tree planting plan to have 100% stocking? I believe that it said that unless they changed it. It was definitely in the draft. So this will be an ongoing type of issue.
So Tony and I have voiced similar opinions.
I
Commissioner
agree
Sernowski.
with you and Tony. It's city property, city tree. The arborist and the city manager can make the decision.
I have a house that looks on Silver Lake, and I have windows all across the front of my house. If you plant a tree right in front of my window that looks out on Silver Lake, I'll go crazy. And
It's too bad.
I will remember that. I will not plant
That's
a
too
tree in
bad.
front of your window.
my only option is to run for mayor, for Christ's sakes. But it's not a good option. And I hear of the fellow who's writing that. He said, they're going to put a tree right in front of my porch. I can't see whatever it is he looks at.
But again, we're giving you the opportunity to voice concerns and have her analyze it. I believe that she's professional enough to analyze it, and for your situation, say, we're gonna put your tree near your property line with your next door neighbor. That would take care of it in my eyes, but,
and as I understand it-
and they, at 39 Delaware, I'm convinced that she can find something somewhere to locate it within a 50-foot stretch.
I'm assuming you've already tried that and it went nowhere.
I spoke to them at length, like 20, 30 minutes. And they were not happy with their neighbors' trees. They didn't want a city tree. They didn't have trees on their property. I don't believe that any of the things that they mentioned are valid, in my professional opinion. I don't think any of those concerns are warranted beyond what would be a reasonable level of care. So like I said with the sewer situation, it's 10 feet away. We can't do any better. The neighbor can go and plant a tree 3 feet from their sewer line. They have shrubbery. Shrubs get into sewer lines. So, you know, unfortunately, like in this scenario, a lot of people will come out and talk to me when we're doing this stuff, and they'll say, well, what happens with the sidewalk? Well, we have an answer. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. As long as the city is dealing with it, then if you can give me that in writing, then I'm good. But you will have this one person who doesn't want a tree and at the end of the day, I can't sell them a tree, right? They're not
Doesn't
buying.
want a tree anywhere.
Not near them, no. I love trees, but but I don't want one here.
And
Yep.
I'm with Chernowski.
So I would assume in that situation, we're going to put the tree up, and then she's going to take it to Parks and Shade, and Parks, and requesting a removal of a city tree, and Parks and Shade will decide. So,
I hope this is really an isolated situation.
right.
I can't imagine the Parks and Shade Tree approving of something if she has accepted it.
I
but it
agree
could
with
be.
that, but I have a hard time,
I'm just saying that's how it would be now. That's all.
I have a hard time implementing, and we're gonna do a lot more of these street tree plantings, I imagine, right?
That's what the job is, yep.
I have a hard time not providing an appeal process for a homeowner. And I agree, 99% of the time, I'm sure that they will side with the city arborist, and I trust that she and the city manager, whoever they are, will be professional and do the best that they can to mitigate concerns, but I just still like there being some mechanism for a homeowner to take it to the next step if they choose to pay the money and the time and the effort in doing it.
It's actually a free appeal, so it costs us money, but it doesn't cost them.
Well, let me bring this to conclusion if I can. What I'm hearing essentially is from three of us that we're comfortable with allowing the city arborist and the city manager in conjunction coming up with possible solutions or causing the tree to be installed over the objections of the property owner, but hearing what their objections are and acting on them. Whereas the other three want an appeal process. What I'd like to do is, we'll go to the members of the public, but I'm going to suggest that we bring this up in the next tree code discussion. Is that all right? With that, I'd like to go to members of the public. I wonder if there's anyone who would like to speak on this.
Carolyn Diefendorfer, city resident. Just a couple things. In this case, those two trees, if you looked at the little, like the size, they had different canopies.
Yeah.
I don't know if.
They won't get anywhere near that big planted on a street.
No, but
in
I don't
motion.
know
Yeah.
but if somebody sees that,
Mhm.
I don't know if that property owner will be less upset if the smaller of the two.
No,
He probably
I
won't be,
already
but,
talked to
but
him.
at least there'd be something, some kind of give and take. If you're going out to, I agree that city property, city tree, city should be able to plant on their property. I do think homeowners should have a way to express their concerns about it. I'm with you on the terracotta pipe, but there are things you can do to prevent roots to get into a terracotta pipe. I mean, our 80-year-old oak that had to come down, our terracotta pipe was clean. We'd had it scoped when we did the house. So there are things that can be done. But the other thing I'm just curious about, the one tree I didn't see on the list.
What
So I would,
list?
the proposed list that was at the last meeting, the tree list?
Because they're non-native ornamentals. Yeah.
But I guess I would say, be very careful, or for me, it would be one of these things, be very careful to propose trees that a property owner, in theory, can't go and plant because they're not on the list.
Yeah, quite
It
frankly.
should be
yeah.
those trees should be on the list.
They-
Because that, to me, would be a reason for somebody to say, well, I can't plant this tree, so they shouldn't have been able to plant the tree.
Yeah, unfortunately, pretty much any street tree would not. The residential trees we have, none of them are suitable for planting as a street tree because of the harsh conditions. So that just will never, unless we want to allow all the property owners to plant non-native, go back and completely change the draft code, but we'll never be able to plant oaks, maples, dogwoods as street trees. It just won't work, unfortunately.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? If not, thank you very much. We'll defer this conversation to a future tree code review thing. With that, we're going to go to end-of-year reporting, understanding that it's not the end of the year. There's still November and December to go, but as of this month, we'll get some reporting from the following entities: the police, the Rehoboth Beach Patrol, Public Works Department, Parking, Chamber of Commerce, Building and Licensing. Chief?
Well, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, general public. As the mayor just mentioned, it's not the end of the year, but I figure I'd just give a glimpse of what we've been doing in our departments and what took place during the summer season. And if you have any questions at the end, be glad to try to answer that or expand on anything that I miss. I'd like to start with your permission with the Rehoboth Beach 911 Communications Center. The Communications Department has authorized 10 communication specialists and 1 supervisor with an annual budget of approximately $830,000. I'm pleased to announce halfway through that we're under budget, and I don't see anything major coming up to put us over. We dispatch 26 square miles, if you're not familiar, so the police department takes care of just a 1 mile in town here, but the fire and ambulance goes all the way out to Angola on 24 and the Indian River Inlet. We are currently advertising for 1 open position. Recently, the Rehoboth Beach 911 Communications Center was reaccredited as the world's 17th tri-accredited Center of Excellence through the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch. This accreditation requires excellence in call taking and customer service for the police, fire, and EMS incidents. Not only are we proud that we're the 17th in the world, we're the only one in the state of Delaware with a tri-ace in Delaware. During the reaccreditation process, the center took the time to complete a comprehensive review and update of our policy and procedure manual, so that's been updated this summer. And I'm really proud of the dispatchers that participated, because for over a year, we've been out with a communications supervisor. Our communication supervisor has been out, and these expiration dates came through in late spring and through the summer months that they had to be accomplished. And so every dispatcher in there stepped up, took on new roles to be able to get this taken care of. So I'm very proud of them for that. We were able to obtain some grant funding through the state. We were able to upgrade and exchange 40 portable or mobile radios for free. So through the grant, so basically saving the taxpayers of Rehoboth Beach $152,000 over the next couple years, because the current radios are going to be obsolete. You can't get parts for them. It's been a process over the last 3 or 4 years in our budget, trying to buy 6 at a time. So this was able to enhance that and get that done. I'll go over a few statistics. I don't want to bore you with a lot with the dispatch center, but and most of the stats have come from May 27th through September 5th, 2022, which runs pretty much the summer. During that time frame, during the summer months, the 911 center processed 5,557 total complaints. 1,823 were police dispatches, which was 11% increase from the year before. 1,289 EMS dispatches, which was a 6% increase from the year before, and 314 fire dispatches, which was a 1% increase from the previous year. Now, we did have some things go down. 911 disconnects did go down quite significantly. Matter of fact, 33% decrease. We had 1,178 of those. If you're not familiar with what a 911 disconnect is, it could be like a missed dial. When somebody calls, no one's talking on the other end, so we had to send a police officer or call them back and see if it's just kids playing, what's going on, if there was an emergency. You know, and we did see a decrease in traffic stops during the summer months. So this represents overall an 8% total increase in actual emergencies dispatched in 2022 during the summer season. As far as the calls, how they came in, total 911 calls received was 4,430, 3,762 by cellular calls, voice over IP was 382, and landline calls 286. And we did have 6 text messages come through the 911 center, and that's actually going to start increasing. We're seeing that nationally, that is increasing. I think this month alone we've had 8, so we're going to start seeing that. Some notable information in the dispatch. Water rescues, we dispatched 11 of those. We had structure fire dispatches, 13, and aviation alerts, we had 28. All were increased from the previous year. Before I move on to the police report, is there any questions on the communication center?
Nope. Pull that microphone a little closer to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, same as with the communications report, I can expand as much as you want. For time frame, I wasn't sure what I should or should not go into. The police department is authorized strength is 19. We have 1 chief, 2 lieutenants, 1 school resource officer, which is it's just been wonderful from everything that we can account from the school district. 1 detective, 4 sergeants, and 10 patrol officers. We are currently advertising for 2 open positions. Each summer, the department is authorized to hire 26 seasonal police officers. This past year, we were only able to hire 21. Although we increased the hourly wage to $17 to start and offered a $1,000 housing supplement for those who qualified, which I hope I'm going to put that back into the budget. It was a good thing. It was still very difficult to hire the seasonal officers. The reality of it is many individuals no longer want to become a police officer. That's part of the issue. And no matter how much we've spent more money this year advertising, we spent more money in traveling to different colleges, because a lot of these are college internships. Again, we just couldn't come up with it. But the biggest issue we have is housing. That's what they keep reporting back to us over and over. And just to give a little bit of perspective, they usually group together after the first couple of weeks of training. And when they come in for training, by the way, they have to, if they're not local, they have to get a hotel room for the weekend. So they have that expense. And it's 4 weeks of training, and it could be 5 if they have the bike patrol added to that. But I had one, to give an example, I had one group of 3 rent outside of Millsboro a home, and it cost them $21,000 for the summer season, plus utilities. The reality is no one wants to rent to young adults that are going to college. Nobody rents seasonally anymore. It seems like it's weekly or yearly, so that becomes a problem. And that's not an isolated incident. I had a group of 4, again, near the Potnetz area, and they paid $26,000 plus utility for the summer. And quite frankly, when they asked if they could just stay an extra week to work for Rehoboth, they were told no, it was time to move on. The 3 months were up, or whatever, however it worked, where they'd have to pay for the whole month. So this is the problem we're getting into. I'm not here to.
Excuse me, so
Yes, sir.
the three were in Millsboro for 21,000?
Yes. Yeah, outside between Millsboro and probably Long Neck area.
Was it like 12 weeks, 10 weeks?
They go off monthly or whatever. Some of them let them extend a couple of days one way or the other. So yeah, it's around that, between 12 and 14. You know, the reality is, if something doesn't change, and it's not to put a scare tactic or upset anybody I'm talking about, the programs are going to fade away. We just can't keep it up no matter what we give hourly wages at. And this isn't unique. This is national. This is, we're seeing Ocean City had to put up housing and so on. So I won't labor on this. Just speaking of seasonal officers, the city manager brought it up earlier. This year, we are celebrating our 50th year anniversary of the Rehoboth Beach Seasonal Officer Program. Over that time, we've trained and educated over 1,200 officers to work for us. And so we're having, to recognize this special occasion, we are having a reunion, and we will reflect on our time here. And I say us because I was a seasonal officer in 1989, and how the training and the landscape of the police have evolved. So we're looking forward to that. Many of you may not know, we have a student intern program. We're proud to join efforts with area high schools and universities to extend internship experiences. This program is very dynamic, and officers experience, or the interns experience hand-on projects or whatever. So maybe we're getting fingerprinting, or they're doing data entry. We're sitting in the communications center. This year, I think we're going to extend it over to the Alderman's Court. We've gone over to the Attorney General's office, and also it's very hands-on. This year, we're fortunate enough to have a young woman from Cape High School, and she works about 18 hours a week in afternoon, and it's throughout the school year. The grant funding was obtained through the state that will allow the seasonal officers next year to be equipped with body-worn cameras, just like the full-time officers. This funding over 5-year periods will save the department $135,000. That's going to go in place. Matter of fact, the cameras have come in. So, and that's go back to the training with the seasonal officers. That's going to actually be another few days. We're going to do some of it online, but they're going to have to come in and get training on. Body-worn cameras, as many of you know, is being mandated by state legislators, so they did come up with bond money to help supplement that. Recently, the police department and St. Edmund's Church participated together in a Faith in Blue event where we were able to give free barbecue meals to our community, again, just to try to give back. Even though it was free, people still gave us donations, and with those donations raised, we were able to donate the $1,700 to the Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company Women's Auxiliary with that. And we do many, many different events throughout the year with the community, and not just here in town, but off-site too, that we participate with. I thought it was important, later on I'll give you some statistics, but not to overwhelm you with a lot of data, that I thought I'd kind of go a different route here. this summer, we keep very busy with special events, and added this year was a presidential coverage. To date, in 2022, there have been 6 presidential visits, and that's not including the one that's upcoming this week, the 7th one. Overall assets assigned to encompass the 21 days the president has been here is total 315 person hours and 42 shifts working, and cost a total of over $27,000. Now, we are being reimbursed for that. In 2022, we have staffed 38 special events thus far, as well as 10 construction work-related assignments for a total of 48. In combination, these events have required the coverage of 114 work shifts, totaling 453 hours of coverage. This is in addition to the presidential coverage. Additionally, our agency will have covered 2 parades, 2 marathons, the fireworks event, the polar bear plunge, the sea witch, tree lighting, and 3 expressive activity events. It is a safe estimate that we will utilize 40 to 50 officers from outside agencies to assist coverage for the larger events, to include the fireworks, sea witch, and marathons and polar bear that I discussed earlier. Multiple events every year require the use of specialized resources such as the Delaware State Police, the resort team, the EOD, Mounted Patrol, and the motor unit, not to mention the resources allocated by DelDOT as well as our local fire department. I only mention that because I was asked to give a briefing about how the summer went and all that, and all the events, even though we're pleased to handle them and we can handle them, so that it's not a hit on that. I'm just talking about our time and allocations. And that's not to mention the administrative man hours invested to just orchestrate and make sure we have a safe event. I thought another thing interesting to talk about that we probably don't brag enough about ourselves at the police department. Found property is a work-related task carried out by the police department that is fairly time-consuming, but tremendous service to the community and visitors. I do not believe many agencies put as much effort into preserving and returning property as the Rehoboth Beach Police Department. The process of sending the notification letters to owners based on information obtained from license, just through law enforcement systems or just Google searches, we're able to give a lot of property back. During the summertime, officers handled 238 found property complaints. While some property was returned to the owner within a short time, usually by the end of the shift, the majority, 184 items of the found property, was entered into our property evidence room and safe program, which is a little time-consuming to put in, but it's well worth it once we can identify, because 88 of those items were able to be returned to the rightful owner. This year, just like in past years, we're pretty consistent, but it is a wide range. We usually give back about $60,000 to $120,000 a year. This year, we're estimating that we're around $95,000 worth of property that we've been able to locate and all that. And that says a lot about our community too, because what's happening is, in a lot of cases, not us finding it, people are bringing it to us. A lot of wallets with money still in it and all that, and we're able to identify the individuals and get it back to them. So it's quite honestly, it's a good feeling that so many people come forward with other property that's found and we're able to get it back. Again, as I said, I will talk about some statistics, how we're doing as far as crime, because that's always on top of everybody's mind, but I can expand a little bit more if there's any particular area that you would like. I'm pleased to report that Rehoboth Beach remains a very safe community. Part 1 crimes continue to trend downward. Part 1 crimes usually like robberies, assaults, vehicle thefts, burglaries, things along those lines. Unfortunately, in September, we did have one strong-arm robbery that led to arrest of 2 juveniles. Investigation did, and the reason why I mention this because it's kind of interesting, investigation did reveal that the suspect and victims knew each other, and it was over drugs. I mentioned that, so it's sort of an isolated incident. So again, we have a very safe area. We did have 4 burglaries so far this year reported. They were all into businesses, and 0 were residential. Last year, we only had 1 burglary. It was a residential. But again, I'd like to put this in context. 1 was associated with a past employee that went in, didn't break in or whatever, gained access, had access, went to the safe and stole money. So it's still a burglary. It was a past employee, but again, sort of isolated. Second was a property under construction, was entered and the suspects painted graffiti. The third was an attempted, 4 subjects attempted to gain access to a hotel, 4 separate hotel rooms, where they're going from the down the hallway and pulling on them. The reason why we don't believe that, well, we know that it wasn't just kids playing around, going down the hallway and running while it was classified as attempted burglary is because even though the license plate came back fictitious, pulled up to the hotel or whatever, and 3 individuals got out and started going down the hallways and pulling doors. So that's why I was listed as a burglary. And the fourth one, again, was an attempted. They did not get in. A suspect damaged the front door while attempting to gain entry into this business. They did not gain entry, so nothing was taken. So again, it's fairly isolated instances, and again, because of that, we're proud that I think we have a very safe town. We did have, there were 4 gun-related arrests this summer from 2 different incidents. Domestic incidents continue to increase, and quite honestly, they usually involve alcohol. Thankfully, most of them are just verbal and not physical. Shoplifting complaints drifted down this year. There was 20 shoplifting complaints during the summertime that resulted in 13 arrests. Obviously, we had more suspects than that, but sometimes the businesses decided not to prosecute. Traffic crashes and DUIs have continued to decrease this year. And I think that's because highway safety campaigns that's out there, and the Uber and Lyfts are being utilized, and just education with that. And I'm very proud because if you look at nationally as well as statistics, as well as in the state of Delaware, our fatalities are way up, and there's a lot of concerns. And here in Rehoboth Beach, we're under that, and we're proud of that. However, we did have 16 DUI arrests, and 1 was a 3rd DUI offense, and the other one was a 5th DUI offense. Beach and boardwalk, we have the normal kind of things. We did have 49 drug-related incidents on the beach, 107 alcohol-related instances, 18 other types of instances. In other words, it might be when we're taking a tent down and somebody complained about it, or lifeguards were trying to do it, and lifeguards had to call us because they were arguing with the lifeguards about taking the tent down. And then 13 animal complaints that were just that was on the beach and boardwalk that we had to sit there and to address. Just some miscellaneous things that, again, I'll just mention, but I can expand on, but because of the time. Animals on the boardwalk continued to be a big issue as far as enforcement. One of the biggest issues I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that we run into is officers can only ask 2 questions by law. As far as if somebody's got an animal on there, is this required because of a disability? And second, what task does it perform if it's a dog? So if they say yes, and even if they give us some BS excuse, and we kind of think it's that way, by law we can't say nothing else, and they are not required to have any identification on them or paperwork saying that they're a service dog. So we do get limited, and we get a lot of phone calls from individuals, or they'll stop me while I'm walking down the boardwalk and say, hey, you're not enforcing this. But just remember that the officer may have encountered that individual earlier in the day and spoke to him once. So if you start going up more than one time, we're setting ourselves up for harassment on that. And I do know there are some enforcement being done because we had some arrests made for that, as well as warnings given out this year. But people have complained and said, I have a disability and your officers are harassing me. So they've complained about it. So I know the officers are going up there. The other issue that we've run into this year was the electric bicycles on the boardwalk. If you read our ordinance, it is propelled only by human power. The problem we get into is, and maybe our state solicitor may have to give us a future opinion on it, but some of these electric bicycles are adjustable and have a key that can be turned off. So even though they have the opportunity to be, have the electric on and be motorized, they don't have to be. And again, a foot patrol officer 2 blocks down, it gets hard to see it, and then by the time they recognize it, they've gone by us. But we did encounter a lot of complaints about bicycles going too fast down on the boardwalk and being motorized. And it is an issue and that we're going to try to address and try to see how we can better enforce that through the winter months. Another issue we did encounter this year, I feel kind of negative because I'm just about issues, but buses dropping off at the bandstand. I don't know if it's time to have some type of electronic signage that would help educate people that big tour buses cannot drop off there. With the staffing levels, we just do not have an officer up there all the time to be able to keep people moving, to let the Jolly Trolley come in, or in front of let the DART buses come in. And when these tour buses come in, it's large groups. They have coolers, tables, chairs, and grills, and it's constant, quite honestly, arguments with them, because we're telling them, no, you can't get off, but no more can get off. You had to shut the doors and come back to convention hall, and it's just coming really difficult. And maybe the electronic signage could help with that. And the next comment that I will make, the bandstand events are more popular than ever. People are filling up the median, and they're spilling out into the roadway there. And quite honestly, we're seeing more people that, like a better word, I guess, on the rude side, and start backing out of parking spaces during the event, which is becoming a very dangerous situation there. So I don't know if we could come up with some type of ordinance, right? If you're in there, you have to stay there, or we're not letting you out. Or if we put the electric signage, at least tell people, hey, we have an event tonight. If you plan on leaving between these times, let them know they have to leave earlier if they're going to, because backing out and going around bandstands with that many people is very dangerous, and we're seeing more and more complaints from individuals on that. This year, as the Streets and Transportation Committee is well aware, we had some issues over on Munson Street with, quite honestly, volumes of traffic, and also a lot of that's being addressed and going to come before the commissioners soon. We did, because of some speed and stop sign violation issues, we did, through grant funding, assign officers to that area and work 4-hour blocks as appropriate to try to help at least be seen and help out with that issue. But again, it is a volume issue. One weekend, it was a holiday weekend, they had over 10,000 vehicles on that roadway. This year, we did see more marijuana use on the beach and boardwalk and smoking. We're trying to do the best with that. It's civil, quite frankly. A lot of individuals will take $25 fine, and that's okay with them. And we're seeing more and more about arguing and wanting to be combative about it, quite honestly. And the reality is, in law enforcement today, that part's not worth fighting over on a smoking issue on the beach. We are trying to enforce and go, but people are being more bold and wanting to push back against the officers and argue with them, and basically trying to get us into an argument or a fight over it. So we're being conscientious about that, but that is the reality of what we're seeing down there. And again, I know probably gone my extended time, we're following up on noise complaints, and I know that's in front of the mayor and commissioners on issues on some of that with outside patios. So I'm willing to answer any more questions, or expand on anything I've talked about. But overall, I would just like to say, hey, we've had a good group of individuals for summer officers this year, and we appreciate your support up here. And it's a great town. We have a very clean, safe, and friendly town. We can improve on it. A lot of issues we have is some on a minor side of things or whatever, so we don't have the serious crime that we have on others, but we do want to keep it in check. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Very thorough report. Appreciate it. There are things I would like you to follow up on with Glenn, and that's the electric bicycles on the boardwalk issue. And with Evan, I guess, bandstand parking, staying inside until the band's done as a safety issue. The no smoking on beach, that's very dear to my heart, and I want that enforced. And I know at the beginning of the summer, we did not put out the smoking areas and the smoking signs and everything, and I think that has to be done at the beginning of summertime. In fact, it has to be done by law. So I'd like to see that resume next year. But does anybody have any questions of the chief? If not, thank you, Chief, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next on our list for end of year reporting is Rehoboth Beach Patrol Captain Jeff Guile. Jeff, I'd prefer you take the lectern to give your speech so that everybody can see your face. We do have embedded in the agenda and handouts among ourselves.
Mayor, does that mean you didn't want to see my face?
I know, I was out of the room, I would have made you.
Mayor, while this is getting passed out to the chief, I don't want us to gloss over how appreciative the whole community is for everything our police department does. And it sounds like to me that the most severe issue that you're going to face is housing as we move forward. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'd prefer to wait just a citizen comment at the end. What would you like?
That's fine.
If it's a compliment, sure, come right up. If it's not, I'll defer you to the
I
end of
take
the
all.
meeting.
Well, it's just
No,
that this.
your name and
Oh, sorry.
affiliation.
Suzanne Good, 1 Grove Street. Commissioner Sharp reminded me that in that discussion of the sale of 84 Kent, at one point, then City Manager Sharon Lynn was thinking that would be, could be converted into cadet housing for the summer. At that time, both Commissioner Legree and I felt a housing subsidy or like a housing allowance, because the cadets and the seasonal officers are competing in the most expensive time period of the year to obtain housing, would be appropriate. So I was just hoping during budget discussions in January, we seriously consider a fairly, well, some sort of housing subsidy, call it housing allowance, whatever, which would help Chief Banks in the hiring process, because inflation doesn't show any signs of abating. So I think it's going to continue to be an issue for summer of 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzanne. Captain Giles, please.
Hi, everybody. Honor to be here. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Appreciate it being here. Great summer this year. I'm probably going to sound more like a proud papa with the lifeguards, but sort of I am. So, but what I want to do, I want to go through some different things that are in that handout. I'll give you some statistical data, recruiting numbers, some information on our leadership team, internal injuries, some of the injuries that we had over the summer. Our reward winners this year that won the awards, how we did in competitions, what we're doing with competitions, the junior lifeguard program, a cover down organization that is really working well for us. I'll go over that with you, and the Rehoboth Alumni Association, which has become very important to the Beach Patrol and to the 100th year celebration that we had. And then at the end also, I'll give you some points of things that I think we can improve on, some of the issues that we had, and reiterate some of the things we need, which we just talked about, which is housing, because it's really hard getting the lifeguards down here, finding places to rent and stay. So I'm going to start off first with the statistical data. Our lifeguard saves and assists, we had 94 saves and 59 assists. That's down a little bit from last year, which is probably good. I think it was more that we had a little bit better weather this summer. The surf, we didn't have as many rough surf days this summer as we did last year. Missing and lost persons was way up. It was up to 318 that we had this summer. On 1 week, you'll see the week before July 4th, we had 54. One day we had 26 in one day, so we set records, which is crazy. And I'll tell you, our lifeguards do just a great job reporting it, looking for it. They're really doing well. And we work with the police department. We had many of those, I guess, Chief, we talked about 11 of them. At the end of the day, if we haven't found them, we correspond and talk with the police department the entire time, but we sort of hand it over to them, but we don't leave work. We make sure that every kid's found. So, and we're 318 for 318, so that was good. Beach chair requests were down a little bit. We had 277 this year. I think that was due to the slopes. We had some people that just didn't want to dare trying to go down on the beach because of the slope issues that we had with that nor'easter that we had go through in May. Tent canopy contacts, we were up, we had 900 more this summer than last. I think that's corresponding to, I have one person that goes out to enforce it for us. And it does mostly weekends. And we had another girl that was helping us out this summer, and she would go with him, and I think that attributed to getting more of the tent contacts out there, getting the tents down. Recruiting numbers. I had 40 returning guards this summer compared to 20 returning guards last year when I first started it. So that's a good sign. It's a real good sign that the guards are staying. We get a lot that graduate college. We get a lot of kids that start their regular jobs. So we're going to have that, but it's real nice having 40 return. I'm expecting at least 40 to 45 returning again this summer, which is really good. Interesting, we had 20 rookies that we had this year that we took on. 16 of the 20 finished the rookie test. So getting through the rookie test is sort of a, it's a great accomplishment because it's a lot of work. And again, getting 16 through. 4 of them that didn't get through that, the ocean dictates what you do, and they could be a great swimmer in a pool, but when you go out in the ocean, it's a different animal. And we try to make you, I marry you up with the ocean. You become real good friends with it from day one, because that's your job. So some people it's a little bit harder for, and some do real well with it. One interesting part that we had come back this summer, I had 2 lifeguards give me a phone call. They guarded back in 2009 through 2011. And he was a doctor. He's a trauma surgeon at Emory University in Atlanta, and his wife's an attorney. And he got a job at Penn, and he had the entire summer off, and they have 3 kids, and they live down here at his parents' house. So they lifeguarded for me 3 to 4 days a week, all through August and September. So here we are with an attorney on the beach and a trauma surgeon. But it was outstanding for the guards because they helped them out as much as they could. They were just great having them back. So it was a great summer having that. Leadership team. Leadership team this year, we put in 1 extra lieutenant spot, and we did 1 extra sergeant spot. So we have 5 lieutenants and 5 sergeants. Worked out really well for us because we then had a senior lieutenant, and she did an outstanding this job, taking on some new responsibilities. Next year, we'll have 3 of the chiefs that I had will all be returning. 2 of them are teachers, so they're coming back. 3 of my leaders, 2 lieutenants and a sergeant, went down to Fort Lauderdale last month to work part-time as lifeguards to come back this summer. But they got pulled into the fire department, $60,000 annual year job, and they've signed on with Fort Lauderdale. So I'd like to see them graduate. I want them to move on, but I will be missing those 3. But I've got some really good people that will be able to get them replaced. So this summer, we had 4 minor documented injuries that I documented with the city. 1 guard had an ankle injury, 1 was a knee, and 2 of them had head injuries. All were minor. We got all of them back. Some of them had to take a couple days off. Some of them worked up in the shack for a week or 2. But that was no significant injuries on our lifeguards' part. Also, injuries on the beach. We handled a lot of EMT calls, but we had really just 1 major call that we had Trooper 4 respond for, in which the person made it. It was a neck and back injury. So that's pretty good for all this entire summer and with all the people that we had on the beach. So we keep our fingers crossed and knock on wood that that's what we had. It was good. We had reward winners this year. We had a Rookie of the Year. It was Colin Fotzlager. Our Lifeguard of the Year was one of our lieutenants, Hunter McFalls. And the Dave Reynolds Scholarship Award was given to Maddie Coonan. And she, in turn, her and her family, in turn, gave the money back to the Rehoboth Beach Patrol for us to buy some extra equipment. So just outstanding people, did a great job. Competitions. We start each season in about the middle of June. We compete in competition throughout the summer at all the local beach patrols. One beach patrol put on a competition, and then the next week another one does. So we compete in all of them. Lot of fun. It's amazing. I got this comment from down in Bethany Beach, and we're at their competition. They compared us to Philadelphia Eagle fans, because we got a group of about 40 guards that go together, that go to the competition and yell and scream and carry on and have a good time. And they were like, "You are the loudest, largest group at every competition." And I think we can all take pride in that, because it's good for us. So they did a great job this year. We have our own Lifeguard Olympics, which you might be familiar with. If you're not, please come to it. It's a lot of fun. We hold it in the evening, usually the first week of August. And we do what's called the Mid-Atlantic competition, which is for all the local competitors to come all the way from New York down to Virginia, come and compete in Rehoboth. Great thing for the city. Hard thing is it operates during the daytime. It operates during our lifeguard hours. So we sort of have to close off some of the areas of Baltimore Avenue down through Rehoboth Avenue. And the beach is shut off, so that's difficult. But it's very advantageous. It's a great way to bring people in, other guards competing, and the public seems to really enjoy it. We had this year the USLA Lifeguard Nationals was held in Hermosa Beach, California. What's happening is we send people from the Beach Patrol, from Rehoboth Beach Patrol. We sent 8 to go to Nationals this year. We do our internal way of picking the competitors that we want throughout the competitions all year. And they joined with 35 other lifeguards in Delaware. And we go under the umbrella of the Sussex County Lifeguarding Association. It's awesome, because you're getting a lot of athletes. Now we're working together as the state of Delaware when we go to nationals, and we finished 3rd in the country. And I mean, really close to 2nd. So LA County won it. California State Parks was 2nd. We beat Texas, we beat Florida, we beat Virginia, we beat them all, and we were 3rd. So Delaware's on the map, and your guards here in Rehoboth are on the map. They're doing a great job. So we'll try to send more and more, so it's fun. Junior lifeguard program, we had 204, which is the most. I haven't shut it down or put a number that we have. It's, if we get kids signed up, we take them. So we had 204 kids this year, which is a lot. I had to do a shout out to the chief's lieutenant, and one of the other guards that headed this up, and we had 20 other guards that volunteer and come in the mornings before work to do that junior guard program. So it's working out really well. What I want to see is, and I'm hoping to see, is that we're actually getting lifeguards from it, because that's the whole object. It's getting the kids involved up to 15 years old, and hopefully we're going to start seeing some kids coming through the program and joining us. So worked out real well. One of the other things I want to cover for you is a Cover Down organization. This is a group of alumni that's gotten together, and they're professionals. Some are retired, some are still working. They're designed to leverage the lifeguards and alumni with careers, professional growth, and assistance. They provide mentorships, internships, networking, and career development. We do what's called a Delta Series. We named it the Delta Series, and we take an hour, 40 minutes, basically, for a 4-week period, for 4 weeks. It's four different times. Right before we do work, we go on and do group workouts, or we do training. Well, we take 4 days and we do the Delta Series. This year, we had Dr. Tam come in from BB Healthcare, the CEO of BB Healthcare, and talked about medical careers, what it's all about. We had retired Major General Vavala came in, talked to kids about the careers in the military. We had one of our alumni, Chris Brown, who is a business entrepreneur, owned many, many companies, including several top 500 companies, who came in to talk to kids about entrepreneurship. Another one, alumni Pete Sargent, who was an investment manager of a very large investment firm, and he's come in to talk to them. So the kids are getting, and I call them kids, but they're getting that experience talking to professionals, and they're out there making phone calls and calling them and keeping them in contact. So it's really worked out well. Rehoboth Alumni Association has helped us many, many ways. We had the 100th year anniversary, July 29th. We had over 500 alumni attend. That's a lot of alumni, and it's a lot of people coming back to the city. So it's very advantageous. And thank you for the city for hosting. We had it at the convention center, and it was really a great success. The Alumni Association they do Memorial Day and mid-July breakfast for the guards, the Dave Reynolds Biathlon. They do Rookie Test Awards. They assist at the competitions. They had a par 3 golf outing. They donate all the money and funds back to RBP for the competition team. So there's a lot of things that they're doing that's really helping us out. So it's a good marriage. Future goals and considerations. Future goals is, we talked about the housing situation. It's affecting the lifeguards tremendously. Some guards I get have family or friends that live down here and they have a place to stay. But a lot of my top guards, a lot of the ones that we want to get, are really having trouble with the housing. One instance that's good, that's I think getting out to the community, especially the city of Rehoboth, is a woman gave me a call this week. I've talked to her in the past. She knows you very well, Mayor, Susan. And she has 3 efficiencies in her backyard that she wants to have lifeguards in, because she heard that we were having, we need that help. And she goes, listen, I'm willing to work around what they can afford, which is just awesome. So I'm setting up, a couple of my girls are going to meet up with her, talk to her this weekend, and meet up with her next week, and talk about getting probably about 4 or 5 of the girls in there. So that's that type of communication and correspondence is working. And we're working with Chamber of Commerce has helped us. Several different real estate companies want to try to help us. But it's hard because, like you said, it's $21,000 to live in Millsboro. These kids are starting at $16 an hour. They just can't afford it. So we're working on it. Couple things that we're going to do this year. Me and the chief are talking over the budget. We're going to order a new Polaris. The old one we had for 8 years, and it rusted out, and it's done. So it made it until the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. It finally conked out on the beach doing a run. So that one's gone. We towed it off. Art told me that it's done. It's finished. So we have a little Polaris that we had picked up, and we've been using that for our medical calls. Jetty signs. DENREC came in this year and actually gave 3 danger no swimming signs on the beach. And they elected them not to put them onto the jetties, but they came up midway up the beach and buried it in the sand and anchored it into the jetty. And it took one of those storms in July, and they were gone. So it was a good idea. It was great. There were DENREC signs, but it didn't last. So we're looking at other options. We might even go back to the day when I lifeguarded, where we took the old signs and we're on the wood splacks, and we just put them into the sand right on the jetties. And when we get done work, we pull it back out. We'll probably start doing that again. I mean, at least you got the signage out there to try to keep people off the jetty, because that's the majority of what we're whistling at is kids on the jetty. So, USLA accreditation, we went through the accreditation process this year for a 3-year period, and we passed it thanks to Chief Rich. He did most of the work with that, and so we're accredited now for another 3 years, which is great. And there's going to be a J.J. Stein Memorial Scholarship Fund. We're working with Mrs. Stein. It's really going to be a great scholarship fund for us. We're working together with the city to try to work it out. And it would be for higher education for people that are active guards and it's need-based. So it would be for the guards that actually need the income. So that's working out. It's getting better and better. And I was told, I know one of the members wanted to, what was maybe something I look back on that we maybe should have did differently, or something that, maybe we need some improvement in. And as the summer went on, I realized we do that Mid-Atlantic competition in the middle of the summer on pretty much the busiest time of the year. And I have so many guards that want to be a part of it. So it's hard running the beach, taking care of public safety, and that's what we're there for. We're not there to do the competition. We're there to protect the beach and protect the public. So at one time, I started to lose focus on what the real goal is, and that's taking care of the public and keeping the lifeguard stands open. And on that day, a lot of the guards were returning, and we left a lot of single stands where it was a packed beach because you have that beach closed. And I look back and I'm like, that's not going to happen again. So if there's improvement, it was on my end on making sure that the number one goal isn't the competitions and sending the kids here and there. It's public safety. So we're back onto that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Any questions among the commissioners? Any questions among the public?
If I could, I just want to give kudos to the captain here, but another thing that I really impressed with over just 2 years, the diversity. I think you almost have as many women as you do
I had
males now,
29 male guards on the beach and 26 girls, females.
Yeah, and some of them, as you said, in leadership positions this year. That was that never happened before. So I'm very proud of that and the diversity that he's bringing to that. So
Some of the alumni, the older alumni came in and go, you got a lot of girls. And I go, go swim with them. Go out in the ocean with them. Go check it out. Yeah, so no, I'm real proud of them. Great kids.
Frank, would you put on the document camera, please?
Thank you.
Just a quick question. We had, I think we raised the salaries last year for both the guards and the cadets.
Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate that happening again this year? Or to be competitive?
I'm going to say I'm going to ask for it, yes, and the reason why, I know I've already reached out to 2 beach communities already this year, and some of them are going up, even looking at $19 an hour. Now, will they get that through their commission, and will it be budgeted, but that is what they're requesting.
Is that nearby communities?
Bethany Beach is one of them down there, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I have a quick question for Captain Giles. On the housing, these 2 local residents that indicated they'd like to help with a reduced rate, were those properties inside the city of Rehoboth Beach?
Yes.
They were?
Yes, ma'am.
And did they just bubble up as it was
Phone
their
call.
idea?
Yeah, phone call to me. I heard you're having some issues with housing for lifeguards. So just the word's out,
Yes.
which is great. And I followed up. One is, like I said, we're working on it right now. It's going to be pretty much a done deal. She really wants to help out. So that's good. And then the other ones are going to get back to me. So, yeah, it's just word of mouth right now.
Well, Mayor, the reason I ask, and I know it's not on the agenda like this, but I'm wondering, do you see a role for the city in trying to assist and help this situation?
Yes, and that's why I think it'll be on the budget discussion.
Okay, because the first thing I would think about is if anybody in town wanted to do that, first thing I would want to talk with all of our colleagues about is why would we collect rental tax from them?
Chief and Captain Joe,
Yes, sir.
you folks know these cadets and lifeguards better than anybody.
Can you speak into your microphone a little bit?
You know these lifeguards and cadets better than anybody, and you know what it would take. Maybe you don't, but you have an idea what it would take to make it competitive as far as housing goes. And I'm talking a addition to their paycheck. It would be really nice to get together and think about that, and then when we start doing our budget, bring it to us and let something we need to talk about. We've needed to do this for a while.
Yes, sir.
Got to have some kind of a housing allowance. I don't know how we do as well as we do. By the way, I was laying on this is crazy, I'm taking too much time. I was laying on the beach under the tent, and some little kid who was lost came sniffling up to us, or to where we were. And it was amazing how the lifeguards handled that scared little kid. One of them started playing with him, with just digging the sand, building sandcastle, just keeping him occupied. And the other one just took off trying to find parents. The kid had come from somewhere in the middle of town. We were on Prospect Street.
Yeah.
But we were just amazed at how they handled that. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's why we heard earlier that Senator Carper came here and essentially did a proclamation. It's officially called a congressional record. We're very proud of that, and 100 years. I'd like to read the first and last paragraphs. This is from Senator Carper standing up on the floor of the Senate, and he's addressing Mr. President of the Senate. Mr. President, I rise today in honor of the 100th anniversary of the Rehoboth Beach Patrol in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. With over a century of excellence in safety, a strong history in lifeguard competition achievements, and a fully operational emergency medical unit, the Rehoboth Beach Patrol is a leading beach patrol in the nation. Skipping to the end, I am honored to rise today to honor the many men and women of the Rehoboth Beach Patrol who have sacrificed their safety in order to protect others. They are true public servants who make Rehoboth Beach and our great state a wonderful and safe place for people of all ages to visit and enjoy. You all are a point of pride for our state, and I wish you many more years of service to Delaware. And so this will be mounted somewhere in City Hall, and we have another one being mounted down in your Beach Patrol facility. So I wanted to share that with everybody.
Mayor, I'm just curious, with all these prestigious awards that we get for 911 Center, for the Police Department, for the Rehoboth Beach Patrol, I didn't get a chance to check today. Do we have special sections on our website that that show all of this and chronicle these events?
I don't believe we do, Commissioner.
Maybe we could look into that, because I think more than just the people in this room and maybe those virtually watching would really be interested to see all the good things. When you hear statements like, we beat out Los Angeles, or not Los Angeles, other entities, that's a good thing that people should know about.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to the next end of your reporting, Public Works Department. Kevin Williams, please. Wake up. Whoops, I gave you the wrong thing. Well, that's what you get as your background.
No, I need this.
You're gonna do parking.
We made a lot of money on parking this year. June, thanks. Yeah,
Thank
right.
you.
How much is enough?
It's never enough.
Never enough. I was going to start by saying Chris can take care of a lot of that public relations of these wonderful awards, and I'm sure he will this week in the next edition. So we're going to do a quick summer recap for the Public Works, various departments. We'll do water, wastewater, and in streets. As you know, most of the water and wastewater stuff is pretty consistent throughout the year, so it's not really a big, we don't change staff, we don't bring in seasonals, that kind of thing. It's what they do all year round is what they do in the summer, or what they do in the summer is what they do all year round. There's just more of it, right? More water, more sewage. So just to touch on a couple of highlights for them. Most of what we change and do differently is with the streets department. We'll spend a little more time on that. Just to update on a couple of things, we've been working through this well 6 replacement. That's the well in Breezewood that has an iron oxide issue, so it's been out of service for a couple of years. A year ago, we did the kind of the feasibility study. This year, we moved into the actually the testing test well process. We're getting the permit for that, so we're moving forward with the replacement well for 6. That's actually under the test well is in the process right now. It's being relocated out to the vicinity of well 8 on the property of existing well 8, where one of our treatment systems is. So that's going well. The water service line material type, we mentioned having to get an inventory of trying to get an inventory of all of our service line materials. We were able to get one of our areas done this summer. It actually worked out pretty well. We had some hesitancy on several renters that didn't want to let people in, and that's fine. We kind of knew that. But we did get the opportunity. There's more people there in the summer, so we had more of a target of opportunity to get in. So we're pretty pleased with the response that we were able to get in the first area. We got started in the second area toward the end of the summer, early fall, and then we got into the Norfolk Avenue or Norfolk Street water main replacement. So those guys got kind of diverted onto other things. They'll pick that back up, after the project, now that the project is finished on the water side, to go into the area down between the boardwalk and Bayard Avenue on the south end of town. Luckily, and as we thought, we have not encountered any lead service lines on the private property side. We did have some galvanized, and we had a lot of good response from the homeowners that when they realized that, then they've gotten it replaced, which is good. No major issues at the wells, so I think I would hope that that's due to the funds you've given to us over the past couple of years to do that preventive maintenance of those wells. We regenerated most of our wells over the last few years, and I think that's showing dividends for us. And then finally, there's a lot of talk in the news lately about PFAS. These are emerging contaminants that are unregulated or have been unregulated for a period of time. Polyfluoro somethings that had a big issue in blades, a couple of years ago, where it's a result of some manufacturing process. But those standards are now going to start being regulated, so we're doing a study that you approved, got grant funding for this spring, for us to do this study to see where we have issues, if we have any issues at our water sources, at our wells, and then also to do sampling after our treatment process and see if we have any issues with PFAS after it goes through our treatment process. So that's moving on. We actually have started the testing, so we'll start seeing some of those results come in, and then our consultant will be able to say, is our treatment system adequate for PFAS, as it is for other chemicals, or if there's some other treatment system we'd have to implement. Just a real thumbnail on kind of water production to see where we are. Looks like it's a pretty standard year for us. This current year is the darker gray color, so it's kind of in the middle of the last 3 years, but a pretty consistent look at how much water we're producing. So that's pumping it out of the ground. It's not necessarily selling it to customers, but it's what's coming out of the ground. So pretty consistent. We didn't see any blips there that caused us any issues. Moving on to the wastewater treatment plant, or the wastewater department, at a very significant event this summer when we finished the phase 2 work. Many of you will recall the issues we had. That's the old Headworks building down at the plant, and we had concrete crumbling all over. We had the roof fell in a couple years ago, and just a real mess. So you gave us the authorization. We pulled money forward we pulled items out of the phase 4 project, pulled it forward to get it done earlier just because of the need. I appreciate that. That work's now finally done this summer, and new mixers are in, which are great. The new screen device, which, remember the little Tootsie Roll thing that Sharon used to call the Tootsie Roll that we'd shove out the window, all that's been upgraded. You see the effluent piping. So very appreciative of the flexibility to move those key projects forward into phase 2. It did cause some wrangling around with the monies, but appreciate the ability to do that. Down in the bottom right, that's our new electrical building. There used to be an old substation out there. Now that's all brand new electrical and a backup generator. So, we didn't come through that unscathed, but we had 2 years worth of trying to operate and maintain this wastewater treatment plant in the middle of this very difficult electrical upgrades, process upgrades with the mixers and all those things. So we had a little incident last November. I think you'll all remember we had a little spill out there. So we didn't come through unscathed, but to be able to keep that without any real issues, production issues or process issues with the plant, it was yeoman's work for those guys down there, and they all breathed a sigh of relief when those things all came online. And now we're getting ready to go into phase 3, which is the dewatering piece. Not a lot of impact on the process itself, so it should go a lot easier on the staff down there. The other thing that we had submitted for our permit ran out in June, and one of the requirements that Denmark Liaison used to submit that thing 6 months prior. So we submitted it back in January, well in advance of the cutoff. They're still processing it. There is a thought out there that they're holding that for whatever reason, until we agreed to participate in their study.
Uh-oh.
Their study for PFAS, that wonderful, those emerging contaminants. They want to test, they want to do a study on PFAS and how it comes out of, if they goes into the biosolids product, and as we spread that on the ground and how it gets into the water table and those kind of things, if there is any. So we had the ideal spot because we already have a sludge field set up. We had already been required to have monitoring stations all around that. So they came to us while we're still waiting for the permit approval to say, would we volunteer to participate in their study? So we did. And they're about ready to start that process. But they had existing wells all the way around, so they'll take water samples and see if it's getting into the water table and how it's migrating around it is, as well as some soil samples. So hopefully by the time they're through with their study, which should be a few years, a couple to 3 years, we'll be out of the sludge field business, right? Because when we get the dewatering done, then we're sending dry sludge over to Sussex County. Thumbnail again on the flows. You can see the current year again in the dark gray, and kind of the increase. We saw the big increase from 2000 to 2001 when we started getting that extra 200,000 gallons a day from the county. So that's all good stuff. I'm not sure what happened where it trailed down a little bit toward September, but all reasonable ranges of quantities, so that looks pretty good. Streets Department, these guys obviously had the biggest impact with the summer, or summer had the biggest impact on them. The old in like a lion, out like a lamb. We went in like a lion, came out like a bigger lion, right? We had the Mother's Day storm right as we're getting ready for the season. Most of the stuff was out, got hit with the storm. A lot of the stuff got relocated for us. But anyway, in like a lion, out like a bigger lion for those poor guys. There's what the Mother's Day storm did to the beach. I think y'all remember that. Lost a lot of dune, lost a lot of fence, lost all of our dune crossings. And here we are, a couple weeks before Memorial Day. So DenRec was tied up. They had fully admitted that they had a higher priority south down by the inlet because they were afraid they were going to lose the bridge. So they said they weren't going to get to us for a while because they're responsible, obviously, for the beach and the dunes. So because we have the equipment that y'all have allowed us to purchase over the last few years, new bucket loader, skid steer, the things that we need in order to do that work, we talked with DenRec. They said, okay, you guys are cleared to go working in the dunes and the beach, push some sand as you need it to make those things safe and crossable. So our guys went out there. DenRec provided us some materials, which was nice. They gave us a lot of fencing material, gave us some delivered sand to us there at Surf, so we could use that to get vehicles back down onto the beach. So a good team effort. They were, and I believe them, they were distracted, down at the bridge, and we didn't really want to wait for them. So they gave us the okay to get out there and do as much work as we could. So they allowed us to push some sand up, which is tough because most of the sand was now out in the water. So we had to wait for Mother Nature to do some of it. But we immediately got them safed up, and then throughout the summer, the dune crossings were a constant challenge for us, just because they're now very steep and soft sand as opposed to the pre-existing conditions. One of the things we did this year or we were permitted to do this year, which really paid us big dividends, is we have the same kind of staffing issues for on the seasonals. Right? We're going to pay kids $16 an hour or something to stand on the back of the trash truck in 95-degree weather, riding around town picking trash. So we set up a program that we've always, since I've been here at least, always had issues with getting the number of seasonal hires that we need to fill out our workforce. And then they get to the conditions here and they say, well, this is too hot, too whatever, I'm leaving. So we lose them throughout. So we would target bringing in more than we actually need at the beginning, hope we'd get enough to last us through the year. So this year we went about it a different way. We actually offered, recruiting bonuses for our workforce. Say, hey, if you know somebody that'd be willing to come work for the summer, at the end of the summer, we'll pay you a bonus for bringing them in if they last the whole summer. So now we got a little peer pressure from the guy that brings them in to get them to last the summer. And then we offered them all a bonus if whoever made it to the end of the season, so the 15th of September, then we would pay them additional stipend for every hour they worked. So now they all want to stay till September 15th. And oh, by the way, if we needed extra help for 4th of July or weekend or whatever, we didn't really have much trouble getting it, because not only were they going to get extra money for that hour, but they were going to get a little stipend on the end of the year for having worked that hour. So it worked out great for us. Thank goodness we had it, because we only lost one guy the entire year with respect to our seasonal and part-time help. And we would have never done, the windstorm that took down all the trees, and we would not have responded to the storm this year without having those staff guys that were able to stay with us. It also enabled us to do a couple of programs that we had been trying to do for the last couple of years. First of all, being recycling on the boardwalk. So we had about 110, 120 cans of recycling cans out on the boardwalk. We had mixed results with it, obviously. There we go. And let me just describe a little bit of the process, because the numbers don't really mean much to you because it doesn't equate to the number of cans that are out there. So they would come by, they look in the recycle thing. If it's less than half full, they would leave it, put the lid back on, and go to the next one. If it looked like they had half full, then they would take the bag. If the bag, while they're looking, if it's contaminated, it goes into this truck. This part of the truck, if it looks like it's good recycle, they put it in the other. So very diligent up front trying to do it. It was not a very good rate, you can see. So first month, 132 total bags that were pulled. So it's not, you're not doing 100 a day, but it takes some time to fill up. And they would take it, and 52, we actually got into recycle. So that's probably a 30-some-odd% good rate. July, now we got the big visitors here. You can see the numbers drop down to probably 15% or so that were good, that could be recycled. And then, either we had a catastrophic change in population or our guys got very complacent or just got fed up trying to do it, or a combination of all the above. August and September, I don't think are really good numbers, right? One, there has to be something else going on there. So a couple of things just to touch on the process, because one of the things we think had caused problems with the contamination is by not physically taking the bag every time you look at it, that just gives them more time, days instead of a day maybe, for somebody to throw something that shouldn't go in there. So maybe we'll relook and say, okay, no matter how much the bag is full, either we dump it into something else or take the bag, but to minimize or reduce the amount of time they would have in order for somebody to throw something that shouldn't be in there, because all it takes is one, and then all of a sudden the bag's no good. So a couple of things we can try to do, but 22% is probably the more accurate of the two numbers than the total 14% at the end of the year. We can work on the techniques and discipline of the guys doing it, but the first couple of months were probably a better kind of feel for what we think we'll probably get. The other thing that being able to maintain the staff for the whole summer was we changed a little bit in our operations. The last couple of years when we were at reduced staff, we ended up putting the beach cans, what we call beach cans, in the dune crossover. So it gets a little farther for the guys on the beach to have to walk back up to put it in. So this way our guys on the boardwalk could pull those bags and put them in a trash can. We wanted to get them back on the beach. Couldn't do it early because we didn't have a lot of beach right after the storms. But about between June and July somewhere, we had enough beach back. Staff was still hanging in, so we moved the cans back on the beach. We like that a lot better. We just think we get a better response from folks that it doesn't go blowing down the beach. Somebody will put it in a can for us. So we like that. And then the other thing it enabled us to do is now, or the other thing that the small beach caused is that in the early morning, so many people come out to watch sunrise come up, and then now the beach is so narrow, we couldn't get a Polaris through after about 8:30, 9 o'clock. So when we'd go down, they didn't have time. Under the old process is they would pull the bags at night, but just leave them on the beach because they wouldn't take a vehicle down. They would put the bags on the beach, then they'd bring the tractor down in the morning and police up all those bags. So because we had a full staff, we could do it with the evening crew. So now toward the end of the evening crew, they go down with a vehicle and get all the stuff off the beach. So now the beach is cleaner in the morning. You don't have bags laying on the ground as people get down to watch the sunrise. You don't have the gulls and the animals and everything else getting into it to help spread that. So we like this system a lot better, having those guys at the end of the evening shift take that last little bit off the beach. Beach is better in the next morning for folks, and it saves time with this trash getting spread all over. So we like that, and if we have enough staff, that'll continue. Over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of success in our local politicians wanting to help out with the dune crossings because they're very, very popular. So 2 years ago, 2020, we had 10. You can kind of see the locations there in yellow, focused mainly down in the southern end of the residential area. Last year, one of the congressmen or one of the representatives gave us money for about 10 more, so we bought 10 more, so now we got 20 out there. And then last year, just prior to the first storm, we got another. So we're about 31 of our 39 crossings now have a mat. It's great. People love them. Everybody wants one everywhere. But as a result of the mats, what we ended up doing this year, because a combination of the soft slope and the steep slopes, we kept the skid steer down on the beach. So every morning, skid steer and a two-man crew they'd have to roll up the ends, regrade the end of the dune crossing, and then lay the mat back down. And they did probably a third of the beach each day. They could get through there until about 9 o'clock when, again, they'd have to get off the beach because they couldn't get to the next set. But very labor intensive, but when we're full staff, we're able to handle it, right? Still got trash guys doing their thing, and we have enough guys to put on the beach to do that. So a great benefit for us because it's such a great thing to have out there because people love them so much. But it does take us a lot of extra effort to maintain those dune crossing ends. But I think a real success. I think everybody loves them. And finally, I skip right over the windstorm and tree branch cutting and debris hauling in September and go right to, again, they hit us again in October with Ian sitting off. So we lost about another, in places, 4 to 6 to 8 feet more of the dune that washed back away. All the fencing that they put back up, in the spring got washed away. A lot more debris with this one, a lot of fencing material. We were a couple days down there pulling up pickets and stakes and everything else. We got the last 4, I think, were the last ones that were closed still yesterday. We got those opened yesterday, so now everything is open and safed up. Just one quick comment on, there's always that tension between those, talking about the access mats again, how long do you leave them down and when you start pulling up? So as soon as we start pulling them up, people start calling, hey, you took my access mat and I can't get to the beach. So we did every other one kind of thing, then we took every third one. So there were still 6 or 8 of them out there for this, and you should have seen the ends of them just flopping around. So we ended up having to dig one out, after the storm, which took a full day just to dig it up so we could roll it up. And a couple of them were kind of flapping around. We damaged the ends of some of them. So it's always going to be an issue. Mike's going to try to get them off as quickly as possible because he's got to go on to Christmas lights and everything else that comes right behind and the storms. But we're trying to balance that as best we can to leave some out there, every third one, every fourth one, so people can get down there, but still get them up in time before, something like this happens. Again, DENREC, pretty busy somewhere else on a project, so they gave us the authorization again to go in. We did not replace any of the dune fencing, so we're going to wait. We're supposed to get the beach replenishment this winter, so that'll be done by the Corps when they come in and do the beach replenishment. But we've safed up all the ends, I guess, the last 4 we opened up yesterday. In the statistical department, looking at tons of trash. Again, that tracks pretty similarly to what we've seen over the last few years. So the folk, any of that recycling, so about the same amount of trash. The stuff that thought maybe go to recycling, it's still going into regular trash. And then the yard waste, the gray, again, is this year, and you can see the big spike in September when we had the big storm that took out a bunch of trees that week. But again, not outrageous for what we've done. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. As you know, the motto of our mission statement for the Beach and Boardwalk Committee is to try to maintain the beach and boardwalk as major assets, and I think you do a great job. I want to thank you. Also, coming from the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, they made recommendations on how to implement the recycling program on the beach, and with certain parameters that were actually followed from a report by DENREC, I think they made 15 years ago. And you did all that, and I wanted to compliment you on it. I would like to share one thing with you, and that's before your time, I used to get calls from constituents that would call in that they were watching our refuse collection fellas go to a recycling bin and empty the recycling bin into the trash truck. And what the situation was, back then we had FSD, I think, was collecting the recycling, and they would come across a recycling can that was entirely contaminated. And so naturally, they would just ignore it and go to the next one. Then we would get a phone call, hey, you either missed my can or something. So Mel Craig at the time would go out there and empty it into the trash can. Well, what are people seeing? They're seeing us taking carefully collected recycling, so they think, and putting it into the trash truck. And so I guess my question is for the same thing. Are we kind of hiding it until we get it back over to the recycle yard? Or are people seeing the ones that were pulling a bag from the recycle bin and throwing that in a refuse truck?
They end up going into the same vehicle, you know, the electric vehicles, we put them in there, but they're, to the educated person that knows what we do, they have clear bags in the recycle. So it comes out of the recycle, gets bagged, it's clear to, excuse me, put on one end of the truck. The other bags are the gray bags. They goes in the same truck, but in the front part of the truck. So they would have to know that there is a difference between the color of bags.
And then they get segregated over at the
Back at the
recycling
yard. Right, exactly.
Okay.
So, but they would not see, I can't say they wouldn't see, they should not see, you know, the clear bag and then getting dumped into the other. It should get done, all that should get done back at the yard.
And I appreciate that, because we're making a darn good effort, fantastic effort trying to do this. And I open cans all the time and stick my head down in there, and some are just pristine recyclables, you know, exactly what we want, bottles and cans. And other things got all kinds of crap in them, you know.
And the way it worked out, in all honesty, is, you know, we were a little fearful that it would take a lot extra manpower to do. Really, the expense has been just in the stuff that we've already bought, you know, the cans, the painting, the lids, those kind of things. It really didn't cost us a lot of extra time and effort for the guys doing the boardwalk to look in those and pull them the way it kind of worked out. So I would certainly be in favor of giving at least another year, you know, and then you can decide if whatever that rate is it still the right thing to do, and then keep doing it. Because ultimately, it's just an extra trash can. So I will say we didn't get any comments, I don't recall any, that there was trash cans were full and trash was sitting, you know, on the boardwalk next to it. They had a recycle can to put it in. That may not be the right answer, but it didn't just get laid on the boardwalk, which we've seen sometimes when a lot of trash is generated.
I'm already getting questions on when are we going to do it on the beach? Is it too early to make a determination? We want to give it another year to try to fine tune it on the boardwalk before we go down to the beach?
That would certainly be my recommendation, Mayor. Yeah.
Especially with all the sand contaminating things and everything. Anybody else from up here? Commissioner Sharp?
If we're still getting 75% contamination, I think we should think very, very strongly about holding off where we are. I mean, that's high. 3/4 of them being, those numbers are atrocious. That you just saw them, Mayor, about contamination. I don't know how it's all we're doing this is just for optics. If we're having to throw away 3/4 of our recycle bags.
Let me ask him this. Is there a way to determine where the most contaminated ones are? For example, are they cleaner or worse in front of Funland versus at the end of Rehoboth Avenue versus in the north?
We could certainly find anecdotally. We weren't kind of tracking that or asking them to track that. I'm sure the Bob and Tom show would be happy to say where they think they see it. You know, they go down the boardwalk every morning. They'd give us some anecdotal information, but it's certainly something we could ask them to track, next year.
Just be a curiosity. Commissioner Sharp?
I just had a clarification. If I understood you correctly, this past season, you actually solved the seasonal and part-time issues that I had heard about for consecutive years.
I will say yes.
Yes.
We did not have the problem this past season that we had in the previous three,
Well,
even
I
before
think-
COVID. So it wasn't a COVID thing.
Yeah.
It was guys coming in and, not liking the work.
Yeah, I think all the levers that you pulled, I hope we learn from that and give you the right resources to keep doing that, because I think it was very successful.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else up here?
Yeah, I first and foremost want to thank Kevin and all of his staff. I think it's been a challenging few years, and all of your staff has done an incredible job under your leadership, especially the streets and transportation, streets department. And I would like to just add, related to the recycling on the boardwalk, it is an issue that the Environment Committee is also looking at in terms of signage, what other beach communities are doing that have done it successfully, what's different with their program than ours, and even considering, getting volunteers to once in a while go out there and inform people what's recycling, what's not. So I hope that that is forthcoming before, not too long. You've done a great job with incentives for the seasonal folks. What are we doing to keep the full-time folks? Do you have an incentive program there?
Not as incentive program per se, but it's factored into the annual performance reviews and our good. Now they were eligible for the recruitment bonus. We had a couple of those guys that brought in people they knew, so they were eligible for that. But we will just take care of those guys as part of the normal course of events of the annual review, and then suggest a pay raise for them the following year.
Well, I hope when we get to the budget discussions that we take a really good look at that and really consider some discretionary monies that you can give bonuses for those folks that have worked extra hard too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the incentive, and you can give time off and that kind of stuff, but money is the real incentive, and anything we can do to quantify that for them, I think is good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think we can talk about programs and plans, but I think we have leadership now in the public works that we've never had before. I mean, I can remember a lot of years, and that really makes a difference. It really does. So keep doing what you're doing.
Well,
Take the day off if
It
you
helps
want.
when you let me pay the guys what they ought to get, right? And have those kind of incentives to keep them around, because they're the guys doing the work. I just, I come argue in front of you for money, right? But they're the guys doing the work, so yeah.
Anybody else up here? Any members of the public like to say anything or comment? Very good. We'll go to the next end of the year reporting on parking. June? You've been very patiently waiting. Thank you. Although not as patient as building and licensing will be.
I'll make it real quick, I promise. Everybody, I'm June Embert. I'm with the parking department. I'm the supervisor. So I want to talk about the May 15th through September 15th parking season, and I have to figure this out. Okay?
Mayor, are you controlling it?
Yeah, do you have yours? Do you want to give it to her? There it is.
This is just some pictures of the
You now
welcome
have
sign
control.
and- Thank you, thank you. So this is some pictures of the welcome sign, Delaware Beach, and the parking permits that we had this season. So I want to talk about the pros and the cons of the season. So everyone knows that the dates are easier to remember, the May 15th through September 15th. Before it was always the Friday before Memorial Day to the second Sunday after Labor Day. No one ever knew what they were. So every year we had to, express to the public and the visitors, homeowners, what the dates were, because they were always changing. Also, I want to express the May 15th start date was perfect for the parking office. We did not have the lines of people standing outside our business May 27th, the Friday before. So those lines were down. We still had people coming in, but we didn't have the traffic or the volume, all this, because they were purchased as transferables or before the season, because we sell them as soon as we get them in April after the budget year, we start selling the transferable, non-transferables. That helps a lot. And then another big benefit is the loop meters are throughout the city, and they're consistent. So it's easier for our visitors and parkers to operate the meters because they're all the same. And they're really easy to operate, and the screen is clearer than what we had on the avenue before. So that makes a big difference. And then also, everything is pay by plate. So they have to ensure their license plate, and that is also consistent because we no longer have pay by space. And the meter rates, y'all chose $3 an hour, and the operation for the meter is 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So the only con that I really seen with all of this was, like everyone else, we have staffing issues. And because of that, you know, the length, the time, you know, when we go to midnight, nobody wants to work to midnight. We have problems with people wanting to work the weekend. We have problems wanting to work the holidays. They don't want to do this. So, I mean, I probably interviewed, I don't know, 20, and above what I hire, 20, and then, you know, they said, oh, we're not going to do that. We don't want to work the weekends. I hire them, chief goes through the process of fingerprinting them, and then they quit 2 days later. You know, so this is a problem that we have in parking. So we start out with 34. I was short this year, and during the season, we lost a few more. So I was probably down to 26, 25 staffing. So, and then with phase 4, we, in 2022, we put in the 77 meters on Rehoboth Avenue. And so now we have a total of 200, and I believe all our phases are done. And then I broke down the meter spaces. How many are Rehoboth Avenue? 644, Convention Center, 103, Grove Park, 36, and the other metered streets are 1477. Now, the big benefit that we see, because they're all the Luke's meters, it's in real time. Our technicians can go around, and they're notified on, you know, and they can go around and fix the problems that are, you know, at that time. They don't have to wait for us to call in or call them and dispatch them out to the meter. They're able to do this in real time by looking at the software that we have installed for T2. And also, you know, the reporting is better. And with the Luke Cosmo meters, we're able to, you know, if pay-by-play don't work one time, we can switch it over to pay-by-space if we had to, or pay and display. So we have the technology to do this now. So, and for the city, I would think that that would be a benefit. And then also we have the LPR enforcement, which can be done by the car or by walkers. The car can do the avenue if they have time and it's not so crowded. The walkers can do the other streets that the cars are on if they need to assist with them, but it's interchangeable. So that, to me, is a big help for enforcement. And then I just want to show you that the meter collections, our coins are now down to 148,000. You know, the credit cards went up, and I believe that's because the Luke meters on the avenue. I mean, I can't speak enough about the Lukes. They're just something that we should have done a long time ago. And then Park Mobile went down, and that probably could be because of fees and all of that. But other than that, the coin is what amazes me. And so I know that some of you seen this last year. It's a meter trend. You can see in 2016, we're over $1 million. And now in 2022, we're down to 148. And I just want to put at the bottom the usage on our change machines. And you can see that it's, last year was 35,000, this year was 43. And that could be probably because of 2 weeks in advance prior to. So, and we used to have, a greater volume because we were always filling the change machines. Now we have to fill them once a week. And getting right into I'm trying to hurry this up, I'm sorry. Getting right into the parking permit sales. I just want to say, you can see that from in 2021 to 22, that the transferables went up. And so we saw 384 more transferables for the season, a few more of the non-transferable, but the thing that really shows is the weekend daily visitors. It's up to 85, so that was 637 more weekend parking permits that we sold. And we did have 3 RVs, so I just want to put that out there. And getting down to Duval Beach. So the one thing that we did this year was put a meter down at Duval Beach, so parkers coming in could use the meter if they did not have cash. I want to say we had about 900 transactions that people have used during the season to purchase a parking permit. They would, so the con is, they would have to go use the meter, take the receipt to the attendant would, in return, issue them a parking permit for the day. And that way, if they leave the beach, they can also park on the street. And we're installing bumpers to designate the parking spaces down at Delaware Beach, because we're assuming that there's 170, but we will know once we get those installed. And I just want to say on busy days, it gets extremely busy. So when that happens, 4th of July weekend in July and August, the weekends are pretty busy around here, especially this past year. So when the Delaware Beach gets full, the attendant shuts the gate because we can't have anybody going in. We, in return, call the police department to assist with traffic control. And even then, they're trying to get through, around the police and all that. But they're on the shoulder of Henlopen and Surf Avenue. And then you got your pedestrians, you got your walkers. So I think that's one area that we need to evaluate, how it's going to, evolve, what we're going to do down there to keep the flow of traffic going is basically what needs to happen. And we're holding spaces for 2 RVs, and we only had 3 that came in this season. So I don't know if that's a wise decision, where they could probably go on park and ride and park, but during the summer season. Because if we're parallel parking them and they're 40 foot, we got to allow, probably another 10 foot. And if we're holding 2 spaces, that could be 8 cars or 10 cars that come in. So that's what I have on Delaware Beach. And then here's a 3-year comparison for parking revenue. As you can see, in 2022, we made over $6 million for the meter revenue, and parking revenue, 1.1. That's pretty good. And we were short-staffed, but anyway. Any questions? I know, right?
Good job, June. Thank you very much. The situation with Deauville and the protocol when it's filled and turning cars away, I think was an interesting one to
Yeah, because the lock just
work with
gets
the
full.
police and city manager on that. Yeah. Anybody up here have questions? Commissioner Shaw, Legree first.
Davis first.
June, have you, I added 7.4 million, but the meters and the permits, but have you sat down to calculate and decide about what it takes for us to collect that money? I know it's got to be a lot less than it was when we used to have folks with carts go around with a cart full of quarters, but Evan, have we done that?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm happy you asked that question because I was anticipating that question from our last meeting. So actually, in the budget report that was provided today, that shows sort of our year-to-date actual numbers. for the different departments. Largely, our largest expenditures are for things like fees associated with credit card fees, park mobile fees. We also have subscriptions for the vendors that we use, the services that we use. We have warranties that we have to use each year. And then we also have, really largely this year was the capital outlays, which was the 77 parking meters on the avenue, and then also the installation of those meters as well. So that right there totals about 1.1 million for this year. Year to date, we're at 1.7 million.
Okay.
So largely in terms of the administration of the parking department, the largest expenditures would be the part-time salaries. Year to date, we were 242,000.
That's, has to be way down from what it used to be with collecting with coins.
Right.
It's the parking is a tremendous revenue source. Are we going to continue to have those kind of cap expenses?
No.
Or are we going to back down a little bit?
No, so fourth year, as June mentioned, was really our last year. So now we have 200 Luke Cosmos. Every single space, as well as the older multi-space meters, have been replaced. So we should be good for a few years now.
Okay, great. And I know that Commissioner Bennett wants to go to $5 on the meters, and I'm going to be with him. So
Can we tell individually what each spot brings in?
So that's tough to do because since we're license plate based now, we can get a revenue number by zone. Now the zones vary. The zones could be on Rehoboth Avenue, for example, as the boardwalk to First Street. So we would have to determine a time frame that you wanted to look at if it was the day, and then just divide that daily revenue by the number of parking spaces in that
But
zone.
we could see what the most heavily used
Yes.
zones are.
Well, the interesting thing about these parking meters is, again, we get the real-time data, but we also get an analysis. So it will tell us which zones are the most popular. And again, we can drill down to, within a 10-minute increment, how many transactions we did at a meter and how much we did. So yeah, some of that information is available, but in terms of space-specific information, we would have to do some number crunching on that.
Thanks.
Commissioner Sharp?
I don't know if this has been asked and answered before, but I'm kind of curious. It appears we might be able to know at any given time how many available spaces there are in the metered areas of town.
So that's
If they're just sitting there without a car.
Well, that's difficult to determine.
Is it?
Yes. I do know that some municipalities, largely where I've seen them as parking garages, each space has a sensor. And it will tell you how many spaces are available, how long it's been open, if it's occupied, et cetera. Right now, largely what we do is, again, because we are zone-based, we go to assumptions. So largely what we see on the street, we could, again, look at the revenue numbers. We see that the first block's a lot busier than fourth block of Rehoboth Avenue.
Okay.
But to see how many spaces are available, we don't really have any hard data.
So is it accurate to say that because of our setup, we could never have an app or something like that that says go to zone X or Y or Z or whatever, because there are available spaces?
Right. I think what we would have to do is we'd get into those individual space indicators.
Okay.
And at least the municipalities I've talked to, I've actually talked to one, actually worked for one previously as an intern, where they put them in and then they ultimately took them out. Lot to maintain. Other issue is snowplows.
Yeah.
If you run a snowplow through the parking space, you're likely going to damage it. So.
Thank you.
I've got a few questions, and I'll try to be quick. I know it's getting late. How much are we paying the part-time or the seasonal folks that are reading the meters?
$16.50 an hour.
Yeah, so for permit sales, they started at 16 this year. For the office staff, it was $16.50. And then for parking, meter patrol technician, Deauville sales, they were $16.25.
And do we have, are you mostly looking for full-time for the season, or do you have a lot of part-time retirees that just want to do a couple days here and there?
Yeah, so they're part-time, so they do 5 days a week, 6-hour shifts. anything longer than 6 hours, they're saying is too much. If they're walking or driving, it's a lot of, the heat when you're walking, but when you're driving the vehicle, you have to maintain your awareness, you know your surroundings. You got cars, walkers, scooters, baby buggies, bicycles. And so it's kind of, the 6-hour limit is good for them.
All right, thank you. I remember last year, a lot of complaints, and I did not hear a lot of them this year, on Park Mobile having sort of a 4, 5, 6-minute delay. Is that issue has been resolved?
Yeah, that issue was resolved. I think largely the complaints we get or that we have received over the last couple of years, especially this year, is now that we are entirely license plate based, it's people maybe from Delaware who do not put the PC. We commonly have PC before our license plates, transpose digits. Or in the Park Mobile app, it will default to a vehicle. So in Park Mobile, you can add multiple vehicles. If somebody comes, they're bringing their wife's car in, husband's car in, whatever it is, it's defaulting to that vehicle. They're not changing that. So then they're getting a citation for that.
And that was my last question. I've gotten a lot of complaints about
Yes.
that this year. We're not being as forgiving as we have in previous years with that.
So
We work really hard on that. And so anything that we can't resolve internally, they have to take it to court. So if they use the wrong vehicle. So a lot of our visitors bring more than one vehicle into town. So when they do that, we have no way in the office to know, okay, so yeah, we probably believe you 99% of the time. But because we can't
You can actually verify it, yeah.
that, we have them take that to court. But we're very lenient when it comes to the PC, transposing. If they haven't had a warning in the past, because we give them one-time warning. That's fair to me. And so we give them warning, and if they do it the second time, we're not going to forgive that. They have to take it to court. And they're told this, so.
Okay, so anything that you can verify, transpose number, the prefix not being there, at least one warning.
yeah, exactly. Yep. The other
We
thing.
look out for the Parker. I'm
Right.
sorry, Evan.
The other thing that we've looked at too, and I think some other municipalities do it, I think Dewey Beach does it, is in the event that license plate has transposed digits, there's still administrative time that's spent doing the research. We check Park Mobile, we check Digital Iris, which is our meter back end. We verify license plates. Even sometimes we'll have issues with zeros or zeros are letter O. We'll check license plates with PC, without PC, so there's still a lot of administrative work that does to verify that information. I know some other municipalities, in the event that somebody does get a citation, but we can find proof of payment, they just reduce the citation amount. So here, typically, an overtime parking violation is $30, so reduce it down to maybe $5, $10, something to that extent. So that is something that we're discussing and likely we'll bring back before the mayor and commissioners during the budget meetings.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well, most of the complaints that I got, maybe for you too, Commissioner Szymanski, are after they've gone through the court system.
Right.
And once they go through the court system, there is no forgiveness,
That's right.
unfortunately. Any other questions up here? Any questions of the public for parking? If not, we'll go to the next, in the last end of the year reporting. Building and licensing, we have Howard Rothstein here. This is, can be a broad report, but also include outdoor dining patios on restaurant premises and outdoor dining on public space.
Hello. I'm sorry I have no graphic for you, but so just to let you know, so I'm Howard from Code Enforcement, and I was lucky enough to handle the outdoor dining. There are 70 restaurants in town that serve alcohol. There's 50 that just have food. So we have 120 facilities that you can get food in. So during this, we had now to the restaurants not serving alcohol. We had 2 that applied, but only 1 was approved. And the restaurants that are approved, it's because of sidewalk space. It's because it wasn't meeting the code. So there we had 2, and only 1 was good. As far as restaurants that serve alcohol, 10 applied, and only 5 were approved. And every time somebody applied, I went out, and regardless if it was that in my mind I knew that it wouldn't work, I went out there with a tape measure just to show the restaurant owner why it wouldn't work. Then as far as private property, you know, there was 2 in town that were dining on private space. One, it was the neighboring property, and one, it was on their own driveway, which this year the driveway won't be there because the lot next door was sold. Some positives about how this worked out. I thought the application process went well. I thought that we have a really good rapport with the alcohol board. So when I would call them, they would pretty much come down within 24 to 48 hours to look to see, to verify what we were agreeing on was legitimate. I thought that it was real positive that the restaurants that were able to do it, they were pretty happy, and you know, then with the pedestrians, we were trying to figure out like these pedestrian access routes because there is no real guidance on it. So in the beginning of the season, we came up with the guidance that we felt made the most sense. And that's how we came up with the 10 feet first block, 8 foot second block, 7 foot third block type of scenario. And for the most part, it worked well. I believe First Street and we need to readdress and think about how we can do that to help out some of the restaurants on those blocks. Things that didn't work was, and I've been hearing it all day about enforcement. Well, the problem with enforcement is we have a Monday through Friday staff. I have, in the last, say, 12 weeks, been in for at least 4 hours on either Saturday night or Friday night during the busy times to try to alleviate some of the complaints. We need to decide and develop a little bit clearer barriers on what is good and what is bad. Because there was, I know that this is recorded, but there's 2 restaurants that the barriers, they were using what originally in the policy, they were saying you needed to have stationary barriers. And I went round and round all season about the barriers because the heavier ones, there's no way to secure them to the ground. So they were getting moved. And then a big one is I got harassed a lot about retail stores. They're seeing the restaurants being able to put stuff on the sidewalk and they want to know why they couldn't. Well, really, it's because it's in the code that they can't. But, you know, and I got that a lot. As far as enforcement, I made 5 contacts. 3 were no permit, and it was from the same restaurant. And then once I gave them a violation, suddenly the problem went away. But first step is I try to talk to them. And then after that, I'll handle a violation because violation's a little bit more time consuming. We have to mail it. And then as far as the context part of the 5, we're 2 of the, whenever I've been out on a Saturday, the 2 that have the barriers that aren't really secured to the ground, they kind of migrate into the walkway. And usually when I go in and talk to the owner or the manager or whoever, they're pretty receptive and they take care of it. But like my overall impression, I thought everything went well. Of course, this was like growing pains for us to figure out what works, what doesn't. But for the most part, I thought it went well. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Howard. And remember, we are at our November workshop, we're intending to look at a first draft of codifying that policy and bringing it into the code. Again, we weren't just quite ready to do it at this meeting. Thank goodness. Would have made it much longer. Good job, Howard. Any questions from up here? Any questions from members of the public? Thank you, Howard. We appreciate it very much. Let's see. I skipped over the Delaware Avenue information kiosk. This is actually end of year reporting for the Chamber of Commerce. Brant, the camera thing again. This is actually information gleaned from Carol Everhart. I want to go through it fairly quickly. I think it's best that you take a look at the data yourself and do your own analysis, because if you have any questions tonight, I can't answer them anyhow. So you'll see that there's a visitor's questionnaire, self-explanatory, I think. Also, and Carol, if you're out there watching, thank you very much. Sorry you couldn't be here. There is occupancy information there that shows you the detailed information on the rooms that were rented out during the summer. The Baltimore kiosk, this is one that's always been close to my heart, so to speak, because I want to know what the visitors are asking when they walk up to the Delaware Avenue kiosk specifically. Now, if you look here, the information gathered this year is what is your home state, home zip code? Are you reason for visiting? Are you staying overnight? Question mark. Type of accommodation. What do you like most about the area, and what do you like least about the area? I had a very brief conversation with Carol, and I said, in the old days, the information we used to glean and record was more stuff like, what are they asking specifically? Where is the bandstand? Is there a bandstand? Are there evening activities? In the old days, they would be asking, are there any changing rooms? Is there a family restroom? Are there foot showers? Are there showers? Things like that. So I talked with Carol, and she agreed to talk with Evan and I and tweak the information that they record for next year. That'll be more beneficial to us in the end, I think, than some of this more generic information, if you will. But this is a visitor survey from their website. And again, it's all, I think, self-explanatory there. And best for you to just go take a look at it yourself. And with that, that takes us to any questions on there that I probably can't answer anyhow? Okay. With that, we'll go to commissioner announcements and comments. You'll see I had left a space in there for the congressional record, and we've already covered that. Are there any other comments or announcements by the commissioners? Commissioner Legree?
We're going to be meeting the Boardwalk and Beach Committee on the, I forgot, 26th of October, and we're going to be talking about wind, a lot about wind. We've pulled up the U.S. wind operating plans. We're going to look for pluses and minuses of the big Dominion project. They're about a year ahead of us off the coast of Virginia. I talked to a man who owns 130 tugboats who comes in and out of Delaware Bay, and he's going to be having to go way out of his way to miss the windmill farm that Skipjack's putting in. He's talking to the Coast Guard. It may be worth having the Coast Guard come and talk to us. But I'd like to hear from him what he's going through, and would like to get some input from Jennifer Holmes at Denrec. I bet she could tell us when her paperwork's coming through. It all comes through her office.
Very good. And your next boardwalk committee is when? October?
Yeah.
25th, Tuesday?
Yep.
At 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
At 2 o'clock, and the agenda has been posted, and there's a website. I have posted a website for people to go and download the U.S. Wind. The U.S. Wind has a complete construction and operation plan, even though they're off of Bethany, but their electrical power is going to come through an in-river.
Very good.
And we're going to get data. We're not going to give opinions, and we're just going to scrape up data. Skipjack is asking for 18 megawatt windmills. which are a little bit over 1,000 feet high. The Empire State Building is 1,049 feet.
It's 1,300.
Good gracious. That's all I
At
have
a
to
quarter
say.
of a
Thank you
mile.
very much. Anybody else for announcements or comments?
I just wanted to add that this Thursday, October 27th, the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee is going to have a special meeting with a presentation by Susan Barton of University of Delaware and Tracy Wooten, and they're going to talk about replacing lawns with native ground covers. So if you're tired of paying your lawn guy, you can think about this for the future. But anyway, I just want to, it's something that was done in advance to have this presentation. I just want
Thank you,
to
Bunky.
plug it, give it a plug.
Thank you, Bunky. And it's free. It's in this room. It starts at 10 o'clock, I
10
believe.
o'clock.
10 to noon, or I'm not sure what the stop date is. Starts at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I'm going to go to item review future meeting dates. Our next commissioners meeting is Monday, November 7th, 9 a.m. It's a workshop meeting. A reminder that City Hall is closed on the November 8th, half a day on the 10th, and all day on the 11th for Veterans Day. With that, we'll go to citizen comment. Does anybody like to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 5:39 p.m. Thank you very much.